Hello, everybody. This is Chris. I'm here with Brian the Doge Martinez. Say hello, the Doge.
Hello, hello, people who watch this man's channel and people who are not subscribed but should be.
Yeah, exactly. so yeah, so I this is the first time I'm on camera actually. Oddly enough, I always just do audio in my videos, but interestingly enough, so yeah, I wanted to ask you some questions, kind of people get to know you, and kind of things go with that. Some questions will be kind of random, little joke, and some will just a little bit about them and whatnot. And I'll answer the same with myself, kind of a back and forth kind of thing, and
Sure.
so. But first of all, I'm curious, how'd you get into the MRM in general?
Well, wow, that's not really a little question, but
That's fair. That's fair.
I'll try to keep it short. So I knew I have friends. I was living in Chicago at the time. I grew up there, and I kept seeing in my, let's say, the beginning of my middle age, a lot of my friends were having big problems with their marriages and relationships. They were having lots of big problems. I mean, I was dating and stuff, but I didn't really have anything catastrophic happened. But like I knew friends that they had these really messy divorces. They struggled with child custody and things like that. And it seemed like, and I wasn't sure if it was just my experience or this was like some kind of bigger problem, but it seemed to me there was a pattern of these issues, and there was just like a general feeling that men and women were not getting along. Like they
Hmm.
just did not like each other, or there's just a lot of animosity between them, or something. And I was trying to understand it. And I remember I was speaking to a really good friend of mine who was, let's just say that he's pretty MGTOW, and he always was. You know, he said he basically turned me on to this phenomenon in Japan called the herbivore movement or the grass
Grass
eaters.
eater. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if movement is the right word for it, but the grass eater phenomenon or the herbivore phenomenon in Japan. And I was so fascinated by this. Basically these men who had no interest in dating or marriage or essentially fulfilling what would be considered to be their sort of duty as men, their duty and obligation to women, to families, and to larger society. They were simply content with working minimum wage jobs, paying for a small apartment, and playing video games and watching anime, and basically just, living happy.
Hmm.
And it got my attention. I thought it was really interesting. So I started watching videos about the herbivores and the grass eaters. And through that, basically, I tumbled down the rabbit hole, you could say. I went from there to MGTOW, and I started watching Barbarossa and Stardust, who were at the time were two of the very large MGTOW content creators. And I think still, in many ways, in many respects, they're still the best of them in terms of MGTOW philosophy and that kind of content. And then from there, I found Karen, and it was a wrap. After that, I binge watched all of Karen's videos about feminism, and I got into. I tried to find her in any place I could, and through that, I found her on Honey Badger Radio, which was at that time. It was basically like an audio only podcast with usually it was Karen, Allison, occasionally Hannah Wallen, or occasionally John the Other, who is another guy I was watching a lot of at that time. And I just really got into it. And then I think at one point, uh, after Crystal Garcia got involved with Honey Badger Radio, and there were a couple of other women in the movement that haven't been active for quite some time. I friended her on Facebook, and I don't remember how it came to be. I think I ran into her randomly, or I joined the Honey Badger Facebook group, and she was in there, kind of active. And then Crystal saw my artwork because I'm an illustrator, and I make comic books and
A damn good one too.
illustrations for. Oh, well, thank you. So she saw some of my illustrations, And Crystal asked me if I would be willing to do some artwork for Honey Badger Radio as like editorial for the website, right? So like if there was an article, maybe a piece of artwork to go with it. And I was thrilled. I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so I wasn't even taking money for it. I did a couple of those, and then I got to talking with Crystal, and she got to know me and a little bit about my interest in this. And I had this thing happen. I was going to college at the time. It was my second time going, so I'm not as young as it might suggest. But I was going to art school, and there was this project, and I was making a comic book, and I wanted to make one about relationships. So it was like a romance book, but from a male perspective. I wasn't sure how that would turn out. I just saw it as an opportunity to experiment with some ideas, and I would just draw from my own experiences and tell the story. And I mean, I still, like, a part of me is like, I still like to get back to doing that again. But it was strange because in my classes, my instructors that knew what project I was working on, the instructors and many of the students, they challenged me on what I was trying to create. They were saying things like, why is this about men? Why is this about heterosexual men? Why is this, why do you frame it in this way? Why is this like from a male perspective? Like, why does that matter? And I said, well, I mean, it doesn't. Like, if you wanted to make one from a woman's perspective, I wouldn't care either. I personally believe that the male perspective is, in terms of romance, is a bit, let's say, I don't want to say represented, but you don't see as much of it. But that wasn't really the reason. The main reason why I was doing it was because I was basically writing about my experiences. So I am a male and I'm heterosexual and I dated women. And so that's just how it's going to come out. But I thought it was really weird. And I told Crystal that story, and that was when Allison reached out to me and asked me to come on as a guest to talk about that experience on HBR. So I did, and I guess they liked my voice, and they said, they wanted me to come on more regularly as a guest, and I did. And then after a while, Allison asked me if, I would be willing to host shows, and like, she offered me like a job, basically creating content for Honey Badger Radio, and that's basically, that's basically the story. I mean, I still do it now. I've been able to, talk to very interesting people and about really interesting subjects, and it's basically been my life ever since.
Cool. Yeah, I honestly can kind of relate to the whole wanting to do it from your experience kind of thing, because something my mother and I have often been told is that we could write really interesting yet kind of fucked novels about our lives, like kind of things like that. Just given um, dating for me was kind of odd. I'm bisexual myself, and um, and honestly, the relationships I had with men were far less drama filled and far
Mm-hmm.
less. They were less competitive. You know what I mean? About like trying to one up and that kind of stuff. Which is interesting because
Mm-hmm.
people tend to think that men are more competitive, right? But in my experience, my exes really, I mean,Ale's not like this, but my exes really, um, were like they seemed kind of like they had to one up me in terms of either not really providing, but in terms of like companionship and in terms of things of that nature, right? But the men were
Mm-hmm.
more, they just kind of did their own thing, and they were just kind of, I mean, they gave back and everything, but they just kind of did their own thing as well. Um, but it was less of a need to kind of show yourself to be, proper, so to say. They're more
Mm-hmm.
lax about it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But again, um, I actually what got me into a lot of this stuff was honestly Randomer Cam. Honestly, I
Mm.
watched his videos quite a bit. I think I've seen just about every video he's done for the most part, and maybe not the most recent stuff because I took a hiatus from YouTube for a while. Um, but I will say that from watching him, then he talks about Honey Badger Radio, and then I started watching you guys, and I'm like, oh hey, this is this is interesting and everything. And I love how pedantic everyone is. I just love it. Like,
Pedantic?
yeah, I love it. It's great. Uh, Pedantic is one of my favorite words. I sometimes
Mm-hmm.
use it to mean other words instead of what it. I say it too damn much. Like instead of it meaning like wordy, which is what it's supposed to mean, I sometimes use it to mean like octopus or gobshite or igneous rock, just random shit, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's just what I do sometimes. I like kind of messing with words. I'm big into words, and in that sense, I kind of like George Carlin in that sense because of
Sure.
how he was with words and how important words were. And you're not a bad word, stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
God, did he hate people? Like, holy shit, did he hate people? God, like, which I mean, I have personally, I think humans are the definition of duality because I've seen people like cut off some random person in traffic and then hug their daughter, right? Like just from
Sure.
being a jerk to being the most loving person on the planet like that. And it's very much this sort of duality. And you really see that duality with feminism because but the weird thing with feminism is that they use the duality in the same sentence. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like in one situation well, I have to help my sisters. In another situation, well, I have to fight this oppressive evil. It's I have to help my sisters, then fight this oppressive evil, then get this guy to cuck for me, then get this money. Then like it's like all these things at once, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so, but that's at least my understanding of it. But would you say that I'm inaccurate in calling it a religion? Would you say that's inaccurate?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. No,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a religion.
Yeah.
A lot of religious people that criticize feminism believe that what they're doing is simply playing out the same, rituals and the same habits and the same framework that an organized religion would have, and they're simply reapplying it to feminism, which is in absolutely every way a religion, except that it's not affected by the separation of church and state. In fact,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
quite married to it, and that's the main difference, and I think the most important difference.
a little something I used to say about religion. This was back in my not really atheist days, but I was less fond of Christianity than I
Mm-hmm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to say that, and I think to some extent it's kind of true. But um, the safest religion is one with multiple gods. The next
Like a
dangerous,
polytheistic,
yeah, like
or
polytheism. The next step up in danger is one god, one devil. The most dangerous is no god, one devil. That's the
mm-hmm.
most dangerous religion, and I think that's pretty true. Because if all you have is Satan, you'll do anything to stop Satan. But here's the problem: because that's all you have, you can't get rid of him, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't kill Satan. He's your religion. Like that's like as soon as the patriarchy is defeated, they'll just fuck off, and they can never have that. So they have to keep inventing new ways why the patriarchy is all around us and oppressive and evil and all this mysticism. Ooh.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
patriarchy is their god and their Satan because
Yeah.
they put it on a pedestal. But they also say it's like this thing that they can never defeat. They
Yeah.
know they can't,
Yeah.
but they have to keep talking about it because it's how they get paid.
Essentially. And it really makes like in a historical context, think of this. Would people fight the Nazis if they were gods? You see what I mean? Like if they
Mm-hmm.
defined your culture, would you still fight them? That's it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and that's my analogy really. But so yeah, so kind of next question. How
Okay.
did you in the stapler meet? How did all that happen?
Uh, um, I met Lindsay in 2015. It was my first time actually meeting all the Badgers in real life. So we had worked together for about a year online, and Randomer Cam was in the UK. Allison and Karen were both in Canada, and even then different provinces. Allison's in Saskatchewan, and Karen is in Alberta, and Hannah is in Ohio. So, and Rachel is in like North Carolina, I think. And so we're all like, oh, let's go to this convention. We were going to the Calgary Expo, and we're all gonna meet up, right? So I drove up there. I actually rented a car, picked up Rachel. So I drove from Chicago to North Carolina, picked Rachel up at I think it's Myrtle Beach, and then drove from there all the way over to Alberta,
Wow.
specifically to Calgary, Alberta, where the Calgary Expo was supposed to take place. And there I met with, um, you know, I believe this is right, but it's there that I met with Karen and Random Cam and Allison and everybody else. And we went to the Calgary Expo, and that's the one we got kicked out of, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
we essentially because we had a pro Gamergate flag up there. That's the reason. There was no harassment, nothing crazy happened. We were just in it was a tiny space too, a really tiny booth with a Gamergate flag that supported free speech. I believe it was about ethics and free speech, and that's it, right? And they threw us out. And Lindsay was a fan of the show. More than anything, she was a big fan of Karen and Allison and Hannah, the Badgers. And so she was planning with her friends to go and see us at the expo. And because we got kicked out, we decided to set up a meetup like nearby. Basically, there was a park that was kind of close and some tables, and we met there with a bunch of fans and like had some snacks and sort of hung out. And I met Lindsay there, and I mean, we just hit it off. We just talked, and I was talking to everybody, right? Like plenty of other people were there. I was talking to everybody, but for whatever reason, Lindsay and I just got along really well, and we went to I think we had lunch or dinner at a nearby restaurant. There was like 30 people. It was this big crowd. And yeah, I mean, I want to say after that, because Lindsay was involved with the men's movement in a way. She was on the Voice for Men. She was part of this big Skype group where a lot of other MRAs sort of talk about what's going on in the world. And so I just started engaging with her more offline, like after, we all went our separate ways and I went back home. And yeah, every chance I got to go back up to Canada, usually for business. I go up there to meet with Allison for something or do something related to work. I would try to see Lindsay, and after a while, we were just like, we got to do something because this isn't going to work. I can't just keep, driving across the country to see her. So we just decided to go ahead and get her brought over here, and we got married.
Oh,
So,
cool.
and
Excellent.
she's been here ever since.
Nice, nice.
So
It's always good when love works.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A little bit about me and Ale. We met when we were much younger, but we re-met on Facebook. And then we kind of hit it off there and everything, and we were long distance for a bit, and then I moved here to Iowa, and that's where I live currently. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I will say this from my experience, and I wonder if you agree with this, um, because
Oh, you're
I
dropping,
oh
or
I
you're
am.
froze or something.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh crap, the Wi-Fi probably cut. You still have Wi-Fi? Okay. I was worried if this was gonna happen.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
never mind.
Never mind. Yeah. Boy, Wi-Fi. Okay. I was worried this was gonna happen. Call failed. Jeez, I got a camera off. Okay. Let's tell me when it's back on. Okay. Okay, let's continue. You there? Did it go through? It's all black. Call failed. Fuck. Oh, come on! I'm trying to record, damn you!
Hello?
Okay, technical difficulties. Don't tell me it's gonna drop again. Is the Wi-Fi still screwy? Oh my god, you've got to be shitting me. Oh,
Oh, there you go. Wait.
there I go. Okay. Yeah.
You seem to be okay.
Yeah.
It looks like your internet kind of
Yeah,
may have bugged out.
Yeah, I'm in Iowa, which is a frozen tundra of hellscape and no service.
I mean, I would say call them on my phone, but...
Yeah. But how are we going to record that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't have my own fucking... Damn. Says no answer. What the fuck? Oh, Wi-Fi again. Fuck. Now my icon's off. Okay. Now it's back on. Okay. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Come on. Just says call failed, huh? What do we do? Can we use your phone? Maybe I'll have it on speaker next to my thing.
I mean, if you think it'll pick up.
Yeah. I'll try that again. It just says call failed. It's not even going through. Now it's calling.
Hello?
Hello. Sorry all about that.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me? Okay, there we go. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay.
There
Yeah.
we see now.
Yeah. If this gets like worse, then I'll call. I'll do it. I'll pull some strings. I'll call you on Aile's phone because she has reception, like Wi-Fi and stuff.
Oh, I see.
I don't have
Yeah,
it
sure.
on my computer. So, but I'll hold you up next to my mic. I'll probably have like some background or something, but I'll hold you up next to my mic and see if that picks up. If this
Okay. Well, you can also just try it without video because the video could be hurting the bandwidth. So
Okay.
if that happens again, you could just
Okay.
try audio only.
Yeah. I'll do that if it gets screwy. Yeah. Again, I'm in Iowa, which not known for its reception, you know.
Mm.
So yeah. But it is known for its pretty ladies. But anyways, you know, had to.
Nice. Well played.
I'm smooth, I know. Yeah, but my face. She always goes for the beard. Yeah, I've been bearded ever since I came here to Iowa, which is weird because I've been clean shaven my whole life. Will you stop pulling my hair? Woman. Anyway, I love you too. But anyways, yeah. What was my question again? It's been so long.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. How if this isn't too personal, how was your pops? Like, any good stories about you and your pops, or?
My father, well, my father was, I will say, he was a good dad overall, especially considering that he was more of an athletic guy that was like into sports, and I was more of a creative kid that was had like a crazy imagination. And
It's going to fail again. I just know it. Damn. Let me call him with just audio. Okay, just audio. We're gonna have to do just audio, guys. Holy crap. I did not. My Wi Fi was fine before all this shit started. It really was.
all right.
I swear
Hello?
my Wi Fi was fine before we did all this. I swear.
No, it's fine. I mean, you can't help it. Like,
Yeah.
however it comes out. So,
But
no big deal. But
last thing you were recorded saying was that you had a huge creativity and all that stuff.
yeah, I was kind of a creative kid. So, like, I think that my father, considering that he didn't really, he had a hard time kind of relating to me, so connecting with me, because he was more. I did some of that, but for me it wasn't like a big draw. I was like I said, I was like an.
Don't tell me it's cutting out again. How is the Wi Fi this spotty? It's oh my god, how is it this spotty? Connection lost.
Hello?
I've never had this much problem before. I swear to every god I have.
It's okay. Have you tried someone else tried to call me. Alexandra Musburger, is that?
Yeah. That's ale. That's ale.
Oh yeah, okay. You could try to call me on that if this
Yeah.
fails again.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I'll
I don't know. I
upload.
don't know what else to tell you,
Yeah,
but
I'll upload. Actually, I'll just make it all one thing so we can just you won't have to repeat anything. Um,
yeah, maybe there's a way to record the phone call or something. I don't
I
know.
have no idea how to do that. I'm not tech savvy at all. I'm terrible at this stuff, honestly.
Yeah,
But I mean,
fair enough.
uh, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, if I let you, right? Like I allow anything. I'm the most allowing person there is. Like that's all I do is allow things.
Got to be a bit more disagreeable.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I'm weird with downloads. But no, so yeah, you were creative and everything, and your dad didn't quite relate and all that.
Yeah. Like I said, we were just kind of different kinds of people, like different. I was also really introverted when I was
Mm.
younger, and my father wasn't. He was, a really outgoing, and he knew pretty famous people. Like he worked in the newspaper in Chicago as an accountant, but he got to meet people like Roger Ebert and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I will say though, like I was saying before, despite all of that, my father was really good to me and my brothers. He,
That's good.
protected us when we were younger. He, I think, in many ways, he modeled.
Yeah, that film again. I just know it. Okay. Um. Okay, we're gonna do this on Ale's phone. See if it works. I'm gonna apologize now for the audio, guys, but um um 'cause the audio is gonna be a little weird if he can get contacted.
No, give me my phone.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Hello?
Hey, there you are.
Hey, sorry about that. I was just talking.
Yeah. No, I get you.
So, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I got you on the phone now. It seems it's telling me it's picking up just fine, so hopefully we'll just do it this way, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you recording
Yeah,
with the
still recording. Yeah,
to the
same
best of your
video.
ability?
Yeah, same. It's like a live stream almost. It's the same video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right then.
same video. Yeah.
So, what's the last thing you heard?
I kind of forgot, but
Let
he
me just try to
protected
keep
you.
this simple.
Yeah.
My point is, my relationship with my father was good.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, he never laid a hand on us.
Hmm.
He modeled, I think, you know, good behavior and a good way of being onto me and my brothers. And yeah, I mean, I would say he was, you know, in general, a positive force.
That's good.
So,
That's good. Yeah. I mean, it's good to know that you and your pops got along. My father was military, Air Force, and when I was a kid, I was planning on going to Air Force as well, but then I was diagnosed with a disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and at that point they're like, yeah, this is a pre-existing condition, we can't accept you, and I'm like, well, fuck. So I end up doing a bunch of odd jobs and everything. I sold sex toys for a while. I got into reflexology. I'm technically a masseuse, technically. Um, so, but I mean, I only really work on ale anyway. I don't have my own practice or anything. But you know, so yeah, so
yeah.
that was kind of my life with that. But my father was, I really look up to my father just because he, you know, he sacrificed a lot. He joined the military to provide for us, and he went to all sorts of godforsaken shitholes on the planet just to, you know, and he got his pay cut drastically because he was in when Obama was president, and he got cut by 2 pay grades. So that was pretty hard on us for a while because he was a master sergeant, and then he got he actually for a while was getting, I forget what's below a tech sergeant, I think just a sergeant, but then he was getting the pay of a tech sergeant because he got a boost because he moved to the he moved to the hydraulics engineering kind of thing, so he kind of got a little boost in that, luckily. But I technically can get free education. I'm not sure if it's only in the state of California or not, but I can get free education in terms of college, but I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not going to college. Fuck that noise.
Well, if it's free,
Yeah.
you can probably take something useful in college.
Well, it's free unless I fail. If I fail, then I have to pay.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's free with strings, as most free things are to men, anyways. But you know,
True.
But yeah, that's again like it's just, you know, my life has been a very weird one. But yeah, kind of next question. You know, actually, let me see if I can remember it. No, what's your favorite animal? What animals do you like?
Favorite animal?
Yeah. Hey, some of these are gonna be weird. I'm sorry.
I don't know. That's a really hard question.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always difficult, but
Yeah.
I'll say right now, my favorite animals are dogs. I'm a dog lover.
Yes,
So,
excellent.
if that wasn't obvious.
Yeah.
I've always been a dog lover.
Have you had dogs before your current dog, or?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I had actually I had dogs when I was very very young. I was living with my parents. You know.
Yeah.
We've had a couple. I remember a couple of Chihuahuas. I can't remember their names, and I remember this like white, like floofy, like I don't know, doodle thing.
Yeah.
It was like the first dog we ever got. I was probably 4 years old. And then when I didn't really have a dog again until maybe 13 years ago. So in 2007-ish, I got a dog because I wasn't able to get a dog when I moved out, right? I wasn't able to get a dog in most of the apartments I was living in because they didn't allow for dogs.
Yeah.
But at one point where I moved into an apartment that did allow dogs, I got a rescue dog, and I also had the extra money, so I was able to support it. That was another thing too. And her name was Leslie, and I got her. That was her name at the shelter, Leslie, and I just never changed it. They said, oh, you can change the name as long as it sounds similar. I never did. I just left it, and she was like a hound mix of some kind. I think pointer, to be honest, because she did do that a lot.
Yeah.
I had her for 10 years, and it was interesting because she was a dog that no one seemed to want, according to the shelter. They said, this dog has been returned to us multiple times. And I'm like, why? And they were like, well, because she's, despite the fact that she's really great with people, she's tremendously dog aggressive and has a very high prey drive. That's what they said. And I said, well, I'm only going to get one dog, so I think I can handle it. Yeah. And they were also kind of like hoping that I would, because they were like, well, we can't find a place for her. We're probably going to have to put her down. And I was like, oh, no, let me take the dog. So I took Leslie home, and I had her for 10 years. And, yeah, she was dog aggressive, but I also figured out ways to socialize her. So she did actually have some dog friends. Like at one point, my sister had to live with me for a while, and she had 2 small dogs, and Leslie and those dogs got along. I just introduced them and socialized them, and it was fine. And then Leslie got really old and really sick, and I had to put her down. And that was around, right around the time that Lindsay had just moved in with me. And we were like, well, I got to put Leslie down, and so we did. And then maybe a couple months later, we were like, okay, let's look for another dog. And so we went back to the shelter, a couple of shelters, and we found Jojo.
Oh, cool.
His name was Johnny when we met him, but we decided to keep him, and I said we're going to change his name, and we decided to call him Jojo.
I like Jojo. It's similar to my pops' cat name, Bobo. He had a cat named Bobo, so that's kind of cool. And yeah. I too remember a weird floofy dog when I was 4. That's an odd coincidence.
Yeah.
I too remember that. Her name was Mickey.
It seems like it was common for
floofy
dogs and chihuahuas. I feel like I've just been around them my whole life. And
I'm
not even a big fan of those kinds of dogs. But
yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, chihuahuas are so high in the biter list. It really makes you wonder. Like, holy crap. But anyways, I mean, I had a dog who was also a pointer, Brittany. She was a Brittany Spaniel. I know, unoriginal, but name-wise, anyways. And
works.
Yeah, it works. And I had her since I was like 2 or 3 or whatever. And the only things I was born in South Carolina. The only things I remember from South Carolina are, because I left when I was like 4 or 5, are cooking eggs on the sidewalk and drinking out of my dog's bowl. That's all I remember. And like that's all I remember. And I'm 6'10" currently, and I'm as tall as Paul Elam actually. And I know, right? And I back then I was quite tall for a child. I grew like a 1.5 foot in like a year or some shit like that. Like I was basically a bean sprout with a head.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's weird. I had so many. I don't. Little something about me. I don't really. I mean, I'll write things down if it's like for a project or if it's for a story or whatever. But I don't really do that when I'm like planning videos or anything. I just kind of go with what feels natural most of the time. And I feel like when I do that, it's not as scripted. It's more off the cuff. It's more natural. It feels more like a real conversation. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel scripted. And now I kind of wish I did script some things because I had a bunch of questions planned and I forgot like 3/4 of them.
That's okay. Maybe we can figure out what they were.
Yeah, we can do that.
So were they just like personal questions, like about my life, or
Yeah,
were
a little
they
bit. Yeah, I mean,
questions about what I believe, or
yeah, I
sort of
can do
show?
that. I can do that actually.
Okay.
Uh,
Because we had HBR, not a monolith. We actually
yeah,
all
I
have
know.
different opinions on
Yes,
things, and
yes.
we also argue. So.
Yeah, no, I've seen that a few times. Which I will say this, and I've noticed this with women specifically. They're more able to talk, kind of overlapping each other, not over each other, but overlapping a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And men more so like pause pause then talk, and it's but with women it's more fluid and more kind of wavy, I guess. And again,
Yeah.
that's and I especially noticed that with HBR, how Hannah and Karen talk, because they're like overlapping each other and they still know what they're saying and no one loses any. I can't do that. I swear to fuck. I'm too male brained. I can't do that shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
like if I try to overlap someone, I forget half of what I'm fucking saying. So, but yeah, kind of curious because with the election and everything,
Yeah.
I personally think that we shouldn't do a recount because they can cheat again. So why not just again? This is kind of assuming that all the evidence comes out to be true and everything, and because you never know what the fuck's real anymore. It all ends up being true. Then at that point, once we have it in the bag that there was cheating, because there was 8,000 more votes in one province than there were voters,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just to give you an example. But then I'm at that point I say just kick him out for cheating. In every competition, you get kicked out for cheating, right? That's just competitions. So don't you think this kind of counts as a competition in a sense?
Well, I don't know what the laws are
Yeah.
regarding, because the problem is that in order to prove that there was cheating, you have to prove uh, the intent, and I think
Hmm.
that to the degree that we know what we know,
Hmm.
unless we get like some real solid evidence, and I know that there's a lot of evidence out there, but no one has really seen it yet. Like it's basically
Yeah.
going through the sort of legal process, which I think is why we're not seeing it yet.
Hmm.
It's kind of like body cam footage, like something happens and then we hear the secondhand info, and
Yeah.
then the body cam footage comes out months later,
Yeah.
and it changes the story. And it's not that the body cam footage wasn't available; it's just that it was going through the proper channels at the time.
Yeah.
So this could be just incompetence.
Hmm.
This could be just as much. And so if it's just incompetence, then it doesn't really prove. I mean, I think that there's cheating going on, but
Yeah.
I can't. It's just a hunch, right? So I can't act on that. So I think that we have to consider the possibility that it's just incompetence. And if that's the case, then at the very least, it exposes the fact that we definitely need to do what we can to prevent this kind of stuff in the future.
Hmm.
But I think that cheating is going to be hard to prove. Do I think that? What was the initial part of your question? Like, I should just accept that they've stolen the election,
Well, no. Hypothetically,
or not
let's
bother with the
say.
recounts?
Well,
Um,
more so what I was really asking is, do you think that what do you think in terms of like what action should we take if it's proven that there has been cheating? Which I think there has been, but just if it's
oh,
proven,
well,
like,
I think that maybe the smartest thing would be, and this is not something people are going to like, but we could
hmm?
just have another election.
Yeah, yeah,
We could just do the whole thing over and make sure that. But the thing is, if you don't have the proper security slash like oversight in every single area by people who aren't going to try and alter the results and cheat again, you're going to have a lot of faith in the system. But I think
yeah,
that that might be the smartest
hmm?
thing. I just don't think we have the time because,
Yeah,
they got to confirm in a couple weeks. So I don't think that that's going to be a realistic outcome. So barring that, I think that the best thing to do is investigate claims, and if it turns out there are illegal votes going on, there are other systems. I think that you can just get the I think the governors or there are people in every state, officials that basically select they just get the electorate to just decide who they're gonna vote for. So it could come down to that. I think that anything that is found to be illegal needs to be thrown out. So any illegal votes, any votes that were after the date. And then the ones that got thrown out, because there were probably a ton of votes that got thrown out that were votes for Trump. There's not much we can do about that, right? So it may still shake out that Biden is president. The problem is this, though. The most important issue is not really who wins. It's how we feel about the voting system itself. Because if people don't have faith that the vote is valid, then I think that it's going to cause way more problems than Biden could cause in 4 years. And that means we don't just give it to them because we're tired, because that's what they want. But what it does mean is that I think that no matter how this shakes out, I think that people are going to be extremely cynical about voting, more so than they already have been, because they're going to feel like votes don't matter. And unless we see some real results, like people getting arrested, like people upending the system as it's currently run and saying, okay, we're going to do this a whole new way because we need to prevent this, and we're going to there's going to be tremendous oversight. It's going to be taken very seriously, and people have to walk in, and they have to be registered, and they have to have ID, and all this other stuff. Unless you see the people who we're supposed to entrust to treat our vote as valuable as it is, then people are I think there's going to be far larger problems going down the line. People are going to be very upset about the fact that their vote does not appear to count. And I personally hope, honestly, I would like voting restrictions to tighten. I think that more people are allowed to vote than should be right now.
I agree.
So.
I mean, let's just say hypothetically that some group of people, let's say, get the vote by fighting against their country. Let's just say hypothetically, maybe. Then maybe there should be some change to that. Just saying hypothetically, maybe, sort of, kind of. But you know what I'm referring to, of course. But no. I mean, I personally, I think that kind of what. Okay, this is kind of how I see it. Either way you slice it, no matter who wins, half the country doesn't want to vote anymore, at least. At least. So this is a very historical election because it puts many things in focus, and it puts many things sort of on the front claws, so to say. And it gets to a point where people don't know what to trust anymore. And the closest way to get a revolution is two factors: no food, no vote. No judgment of your own society. No way to control your society. Like with monarchies, you still had taxes. You still you couldn't elect who was in charge, but the popularity of the king was very important, especially in terms of rivalries and upheavals and nationalities and all that stuff. So that was kind of the big point with that back then. Hi Jojo. But Ale, here's Jojo.
He's probably asking for food.
You can feed him real quick. You can feed him real quick.
No, Lindsay's got it.
Okay.
She's gonna take care of it.
Gotcha. No, I get you. That's fine. Ale just fed the cat. Normally I do that, but our cat is a chunky butt. Like, he is like McChunkerson. Yeah, he's pretty floofy, but thick boy.
Thick.
Thick. Okay, I'm trying to think of something maybe more, because you mentioned to me that you kind of lean right, libertarian, that whole alley. Um,
Yeah, in my mind, libertarian is far right.
hmm,
That's what I think.
okay.
And when I say libertarian, I don't mean the Libertarian Party.
Yeah,
The Libertarian Party are
no,
losers.
totally,
They've been
yeah.
infiltrated by the left, and
Oh yeah,
they're kind of screwed.
yeah.
So,
I myself used to call myself a libertarian. I don't as
mhm.
much just because of the party. Like, they are the party of pot. That's all it is. It's a one problem party.
Well, that's their main selling point,
Yeah,
and that selling point is disappearing fast because
yeah,
pot's being legalized everywhere.
yeah,
And I could get into why I think the Libertarian Party is a joke beyond like just what they stand for, but
yeah.
rather they're. I don't think that we'll ever have a real Libertarian Party that has any validity
Mm,
anytime soon because of certain let's say, evolutionary issues they have not addressed that
yeah,
will never allow them to become popular
yeah.
unless they change that.
No, I agree with that. And it's interesting because I think it was on HBR that I saw this, but there was a guy. Yeah, you were in the video. This guy was talking about how Joe Jorgensen, if it wasn't for her and all those votes went to Trump, then he technically would have won or something like that. But that's
Yeah,
old. That's
I
old
heard
numbers.
that, but
Yeah, that's old numbers. But I don't. It is close, but I mean, it's
I do believe that on some level, the Libertarian Party really only succeeds at taking votes away from the Republicans right now.
yeah.
That's the main thing that they succeed at, but I'm never going to tell someone that they should have voted a certain way
Well, yeah,
because
yeah,
that is their right. So, but I will try to make the case as to why, if they're trying to decide between the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party, that they may as well just go with the Republican Party because if they don't, they're really just throwing their vote away. And that's
yeah,
true. I know that people don't like that saying, you're throwing your vote away, but
yeah,
I do believe that if you're voting third party, you're throwing your vote away because the two party system is, in a way, it's by design,
yeah.
but it is a product of our let's say our gender differences,
Hmm.
and that's why. If there are two genders, there will be basically two wings, and then by that two parties, and the other parties that exist, they simply fall on that spectrum somewhere
Hmm.
else, but they are on that spectrum.
True.
So if you voted for the Greens, then good for you, but you're basically taking votes away from the Democrats
Yeah.
because it's the same. It's fundamentally on the same end of the scale.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I can see that. I myself think more that um, I don't like a part of me thinks that it is viable to vote third party, but part of me is like they don't have enough votes to really even count technically. So I'm kind of mixed on that myself, but
But yeah, I mean, look, if I thought a third party could even get 5% of the vote, so that they could actually, I think if they get 5% of the
yeah,
vote, they can speak at debates.
yeah,
If I thought they could get 5% of the vote, I would like to see the platform open, the debate platform open
mm,
to more parties so they can all make
yeah,
their case.
yeah, yeah,
So I would support that.
yeah,
But I just don't think. It seems to me that every 4 years, hell, every 2 years,
yeah,
when there's an election,
yeah,
things have moved so dangerously to the left that you almost have to vote as a defensive tactic to just hold off, the storm.
yeah,
And that means that you don't really have time to basically be like, let's all coordinate and vote third party so we can get some more people involved in the debate platform. And I think that the left knows this, and I think that this is why they play really hardball when it comes to trying to position themselves. So because if there is room for a third party, and they start, and by the way, they'll simply just grow these other additional parties from within
mm,
the main establishment parties. Like, Trump ran as a Republican, but he's
yeah,
not a Republican.
yeah, no,
He is not by any stretch. He is not part of the establishment. He is not part of the system.
yeah,
The Republicans hated him almost as much as the Democrats did.
Yeah.
And in some of them more, because he was a monkey wrench in their entire scam.
Yeah.
You know, when I criticize the left, I'm very specific. I'm not talking about political parties. I'm not talking about liberals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about leftists. I'm talking about people who believe that you must use the government to solve problems and that they know who the best people are to solve those problems and that the state will do it. They believe in top-down power to fix everything. And those people can be in the Republican or Democrat party.
Yes.
Leftists can be in any party.
Oh yeah.
So,
Rhinos are a thing.
What?
Rhinos are a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. And it's not even just rhinos. I mean, look. If you're the only spectrum that matters, because people talk about political compasses and all that, all that's bullshit. All of it's bullshit. The only thing that matters is, do you believe that the human condition is such that the state must be used to solve problems and protect people, and essentially, like, do you believe people should be governed?
Yeah.
And whether you want them to be governed well or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Do you believe they should be governed, or do you believe they should be free? That's the only thing that matters. And there is a lot of room in the middle for, it's like a spectrum. So some people say, well, look, they could go full on anarcho-capitalism. I don't think there should be a state at all, and everything should be privately owned. Everything should be private businesses. We'll build the roads with private businesses. We'll have police will be private. Everything will be private, right? There'll be no fire departments. Everything is private, and everything is about individual ownership. Period, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have communists that basically say, look, private property should not exist. The government should take care of everyone. Even if the ultimate goal of a communist is to not have a government and everybody sort of, voluntarily gives everything away, and that they voluntarily don't believe in property rights, which is ridiculous, because if you're the one guy in a communist state that's like, I think I want to keep my shit, you're probably going to get murdered.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, there's so much morally wrong with that. But the point is, you on one end you have complete, maybe socialism might be a better word. You have the state owns everything and it takes care of everyone, and no one owns any property, kind of like what the World Economic Forum wants. And on the other end you have, there is no state at all, and everybody just survives by trade and the free market and so on, right? And I believe that both of those extremes are unattainable, either because one could never be reached, that's the far right in my mind, that is anarcho-capitalism, because people will never vote for that, because they're they're far too dependent on the state right now, and they just don't want to get rid of that. They just like that idea, and there are always people that feel like they need to control others to get what they want. And if you go all the way to the left and you start moving towards communism, you just murder millions and millions and millions of people. And so there is, when I say I am far right, I mean I am libertarian in my principles, but I also live in reality, and so I know that there must be a government right now, because people feel like they can't not have that. And I think that I just gotta be realistic, right? So, and I don't think that's gonna change, and I don't think it's gonna change for a while, and a lot of that has to do with men and women. And I think that's what it comes down to. This is why I don't have a problem talking about politics on the show, because I do think that there is a strong correlation between the relationship between men and women and whether or not our country's government moves more socialist or moves capitalist. More specifically free market. So.
No, I think you're a bit more in tune to this than I am. I'm not all that political myself. I'm new into I am now, but I'm new to a lot of this. But I mean the fact that you're willing to kind of step back from principle and say, okay, this is reality, shows that you're definitely in the moderate branch of things.
Yeah,
so which,
well, I mean, I'm with you. So, there are some people who I follow on, YouTube and stuff that I watch that are, they're pretty ideological in their beliefs, and
Yeah.
they think that they're coming at this from a perspective of reason, and I think that they are in terms of defining their principles. But the problem is that, you know, like I said, they don't live in reality. Like Yaron Brook. Do you know who Yaron Brook is?
Never heard of him.
Yaron Brook is a Randian objectivist, which means he's a big fan of Ayn Rand, and he's a big fan of the free market, and he's libertarian and stuff.
Yeah.
And I watch him, and it's interesting, too, because I watch Yaron Brook. I also watch Stefan Molyneux. I watch him on BitChute now.
Yeah.
And Molyneux is an anarcho-capitalist. He's an ANCAP.
Yeah, I know a bit about Molyneux.
What was that?
I know a bit about Molyneux. I used to watch him myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like Steph. I had him on the show once. I was honored to interview him and talk to him. And the thing about the main difference between them, and this is the thing I find really interesting, because I don't think Yaron Brook ever spoke to Stefan, but Yaron Brook is a pretty well-known objectivist. He's been on David Pakman's show, and they've debated about the free market and stuff like that. But Stefan is actually living in reality. I think that he clearly strongly believes in a free society, and he's thought a lot about how that would work, and I don't know if it would work out that way, because it's one of those things that legitimately has never been tried.
Yeah.
But Yaron Brook doesn't, because he doesn't, for example, he doesn't believe that hypergamy exists. He thinks that women should just exercise reason and not be hypergamous.
I mean, they should, but they're not going to. I mean...
Why would they?
Yeah, why would they?
If they don't have to, then why would they? Like, and again, you can't just hand wave it. Like, you know, at the very least, try to challenge women directly and say, well, okay, if you want to live in a world with a free market, first of all, they might not.
Yeah.
Then maybe their only concern is, will I be able to live in a society that is safe enough that I feel as though I can raise any kids I might have in this society without having to worry about whether or not they're going to be fed and taken care of and you know, be able to go to the doctor and all that.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as Brooke is concerned, like, women should just logic their way out of being what they have been since we crawled out of the muck.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't criticizing women. This is acknowledging what they are. Like, this is in their nature. This is why we have, by and large, a two-party system. Even in countries that claim they don't have, like, they have multiple parties, if you look at how they sit, they're just on various ends of the spectrum. Some are more conservative and some are more, let's say, leftist, like they want to give away more stuff and they whatever, but ultimately it just comes down to how much state do you want, and that's it. And of course, this is the reason why I say that you know, when I describe leftists, I don't limit it to Democrats, because I know that Republicans would do it too. Very few people who actually get involved in politics are not seeking power.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, most people who get involved are looking for power, and it takes someone who literally doesn't need it, that literally wants to make the country better, because maybe they would benefit as a consequence of making the country better, rather than just wanting power. And people who don't have any real skills and much to offer often get into politics. Like, that's what they do, right? Yeah. And I think that this goes for most politicians. I won't say all, because I don't know if there are any truly altruistic politicians. I don't suspect there are many, though. So it goes for most of them, because they're all looking for power. And so if you are involved in politics and you want to increase your power, it doesn't matter what party you get involved with. That's just like the method by which you try to achieve power. You're basically interested in expanding the need for the state. You want to make the state more necessary. You want it to be bigger so that you can tax people more, and you can get more of their money, and you can get more power. And so it doesn't matter what party you win. You're either, you know, like, there are war hawks in both parties, and there are welfare sugar daddies in both parties as well. Yeah. There may be to different degrees, but it's there.
Oh, yeah. It's... I think Randomer Cam said this, but I remember someone saying that it was kind of an idea that was passed, that you would try and get, like, Um, I just had it. I'm sorry. I looked away, and then all of a sudden, uh, but yeah, it's that you would try. Yeah, you would pretty much have to elect people that don't want the job, essentially. I mean, like what they do with jury duty, right?
Mm-hmm.
You basically get people who don't want it. You pick a random person and say, "Here, now it's your turn," right? Like that. I mean, do you think that could be a way to kind of pick politicians, or I mean,
What was that? Wait, would you run that by me again?
kind of an idea to pick politicians is to basically like pull a random name and say,
Oh,
okay,
you mean like a lottery?
yeah, kind of like a lottery, yeah. I'm thinking more like jury duty, right? Like, like
Yeah,
you have an obligation to the state, you have to do this at this time, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, now granted, just so happens that men have, had more obligations to the state for some reason. But actually, to kind of go back to what you're saying, I think a main dichotomy is control, or not control, safety versus freedom. I
yep,
think that's because women want safety most of the time. Men want freedom
yes,
most of the time. So I think
that's right,
that's the big, and
that's right.
the left party is the party of safety, government safety,
Hmm.
and the right is the party of freedom and small government.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And I like that you said the left and the right because
yeah,
it's not the Republicans and Democrats. It's
yeah,
basically the Republicans have moved. Basically, everybody's moved left.
yes,
Everybody, and they're going to keep going that way. And the reason is because of how much. Like honestly, the reason is twofold. Okay,
mm,
one is that the politicians, by and large, want the state bigger because they
hmm,
want power.
yeah,
But they also know the best way to get it is to appeal to women.
hmm,
And men will also appeal to women because they love women
oh yeah,
and they care about keeping them safe. So inevitably, our blind care for women and their security is inevitably going to lead us down the path to socialism
sure,
unless somebody corrects the ship. And the
yeah,
only way you can do that is to, number one, you have to recognize that women don't need the state for security.
yeah,
So they have to start going to themselves and men, because before the state got really big, we can say the Wild West, I guess.
yeah,
Um, the state wasn't handing out welfare checks back then. So
yeah,
how did women survive? Well, they basically partnered with men, and they basically created a sort of complementary relationship,
hmm,
right? So the man did his part, and the woman did her part, and they were able to build, a community with other men and women that were building families and such.
hmm,
And in that community was the security that women were looking for
yeah,
because the men were armed, because those men were willing to do whatever they could to protect their women and the women in their vicinity.
hmm,
And so women got that from them. But when the state replaced men with themselves,
mm,
then it looked even more appealing because it looks like the state doesn't run out of money.
yeah,
It's always there for you, and you don't have any obligations to it.
yeah,
So the welfare state essentially broke up men and women, and women married the state.
yeah,
And again, not all women, obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but it is a growing problem because as more and more women get on the welfare dole, and even women who aren't on that will have more sympathy for those women on it than those that are in families,
yeah,
right? So they're going to vote in policies that support women. Um, and men will too, and men will as well. And then you compound that with the education system that basically teaches boys and girls that women have been oppressed all throughout history, and that
yeah,
we need to give them a leg up, and so on. And the only thing we're doing is essentially like kneecapping both sexes
yeah,
and
really,
making them all dependent on the state. And of course, men pay like 80% of the taxes that go to the welfare state and go to the military industrial complex, both of which men suffer for
yeah,
because men pay most of the taxes. So women benefit from most of the taxes in the form of welfare payments. And men are, by and large, overwhelmingly the majority of soldiers sent off to die in wars.
I
And the parties want that across the board. They're
Yeah.
okay with it because
Yeah.
all they care about is getting their votes.
Yeah.
And women will vote for them because women make up the majority of voters.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they're the majority of people, and yet they're a minority.
yeah, that's why the language around women as a minority has sort of shifted a little bit. They are definitely oppressed
Yeah.
by the patriarchy, but they're also part of the patriarchy. It's
Yeah.
it's a knot of
Funny,
bullshit.
funny, yeah, funny how that works. Kind of to shift gears a little bit. Tell me about your art style, because I really like your art. Like, what? Any inspirations? Anything you kind of drew from? Anything like that?
Yeah, I drew from a lot of stuff. When I was really young, I drew from like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like the
Yeah.
Flintstones.
Yeah.
As I got a little older, my mother started buying me comic books, like Marvel comics, and I would copy a lot of the drawings and change them around and try to learn how to draw that kind of anatomy.
Yeah.
Then I think when I was a teenager in high school, I discovered manga and anime.
Yeah.
Because it was really underground at that time. We're talking about like the late 80s. I mean, there were some TV shows like that I grew up with that were anime, but it was one of those things that you didn't know it was anime, but you knew it was different.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what this is, but it's very different.
Yeah.
So, and then I was copying that stuff. I was like really into it, and I think now, so basically it's like mostly that, and then I just sort of like I was trying to figure out what my style was going to be, and I just kept on working in whatever way was coming. Oh, and I also I also copied Archie comics for a while when I was younger. So, because that was also like a different art style that for some reason I found attractive.
Yeah.
So, what was I saying? So yeah, I mean, basically, I had to distill it down to one thing, and I guess what's left now is it's sort of like a mix of a bit of Western comic books mixed in with some manga influence and some animation influence on top of that. So whether that's Disney or Hanna-Barbera or something like that, DreamWorks, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so basically that's what I would say my art style has evolved to. It's sort of like a weird mix.
I'll try not to frame this as a favorite question because I know those are the bane of your existence. But in terms of like, because you mentioned Disney, are there any Disney movies you really like or you used to watch a lot? Or
Yeah,
anything
actually,
like that?
no, there are. So I can probably name some favorites, and the reason is because I'm one of those weird people that doesn't like the Disney movies that are really popular, and it's not just to be contrarian and edgy. It's because I genuinely didn't really find them to be as good as most. So the Disney movies I like the most are the ones that I think people they wouldn't say. So from Golden Age Disney, which is the oldest Disney movies, from like Snow White on up, right?
Yeah.
My favorites are two. One that comes to mind. Yeah. I really like Sleeping Beauty. I think it's one of my all-time favorites of all the things that Disney has ever made is Sleeping Beauty. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a fucking dragon in it.
Yeah.
But it's just really beautiful. Like, I mean, it's just and it's very stylized, so it doesn't have like the way that Cinderella and Snow White, they almost had like this rotoscope thing, and everything was it was a little too real. And Pinocchio is really great too, but Sleeping Beauty is my favorite, and then after that, it's Alice in Wonderland, which I think doesn't get enough credit. I love Alice in Wonderland. I like that it's not as formulaic as most.
Yeah.
So I will say Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
As far as Silver Age Disney movies goes, which is basically from The Little Mermaid up to, I want to say, maybe like Pocahontas or something.
Yeah.
The Silver Age of Disney, my favorite movie is Aladdin, hands down. Like, that's the best one. In my mind. It's the most entertaining. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got great music.
Yeah.
It's just got it all. It's just a complete package. Hercules, I'm not through. I didn't like it that much. I was, I wanted to, but I couldn't get into it as much. Hunchback, it's one of those you can like watch one time, and I don't find a lot of rewatchability in it.
Yeah.
Plus, Jason Alexander as a comedy relief. Come on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then what's the last one? Oh yeah, everybody loves The Lion King. I'm not really a big fan.
Yeah,
So
no, I get that.
it's like Jungle Book. It's
Yeah.
it's fine,
No,
but I don't think it's like the Oscar-worthy, like massive, jizz blast that a lot of people give it. I like Aladdin. I think that's a good film. So
yeah, I know for Ale, The Little Mermaid was like her drug of choice, in terms of that age.
Little Mermaid's good.
Yeah.
I like Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Definitely put them back on. That hand-drawn book,
Yeah.
though. So
Yeah. Ale was pretty.
And Pocahontas.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen Pocahontas. I think at that point it was like before Mulan. I was kind of tuned out. I was checked out because every time I saw a trailer, it was like, okay, so you got the girl, you got her pet, that's cute, and then you have like the talking, whatever, mystical creature, whether it's a genie or a gargoyle or a dragon, and I was just like, they're not even trying anymore.
Yeah.
So.
No kidding.
But I didn't really care for Hercules either. Like I don't know, something about the art style, and I didn't like the story. Like when I heard they were doing it, there was a small part of me that was like, are they gonna do it like the real story? Of course they didn't. So I was just kind of annoyed with that.
Yeah. Elle's got a little. She knows something about those films. She wants to mention to you.
I'm sorry. One more thing.
Oh,
I gotta say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
The very best Disney movie, and I always forget this, but the very best Disney movie is actually Fantasia. That is the most beautiful film. So if you've never seen that, I mean, you must have seen Fantasia, but that's the best one. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Elle's got a little something to mention here.
It's basically the movies that are actually from the Silver Age. They actually all got made in one studio that was actually shutting down.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you already knew this. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That's why they were starting all of this. I thought they used to do this thing where they would take turns, kind of like Squaresoft does.
Yeah.
No.
Like the studio that did Aladdin was the same one that did, or the teams were flip flopping. Like the guys who did Aladdin were the same guys who did Hercules. I thought, because in between there was something else. I can't remember what it was. No.
But it was all just kind of produced in the same studio, so like The Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, Hercules, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
all of those
the new
basically anything from like 1985 to like 2000.
Yeah. Which the new Mulan was
all the way up to Home on the Range or whatever that
one. Which I remember what you said on stream before, Brian, is that fantasy can just be fantasy, it doesn't have to be realistic, which I do agree, and because of that I kind of want to add banana leaf armor to my story for some reason. Like, I don't know why, I just do now. But
you said it earlier.
Well, yeah. Well, that being said, I like some realism in it in terms of, like, if it's a historical thing, if it's got historical aspects to it.
I wouldn't say throw it all out.
Yeah.
I would say that, but I think that people have a problem with getting a little bit too. You know what I think really happens? I think people use realism as like a crutch to get away with either being edgy or being lazy.
Yeah,
but you can marry them. Like, for example, Lord of the Rings movies are fantasy movies.
Yeah.
But gravity exists and momentum exists.
Yeah.
So, like, they're not throwing everything out.
Yeah.
The armor looks practical, but it's also made with fashion and like aesthetics in mind.
Yeah.
So they're not going into necessarily like actual ancient armor of whatever time period and just pulling that, but they're trying to communicate, this is a period movie, but it exists in a world that's not real. Game of Thrones is, I think, might have been what I was using as because I remember when Game of Thrones came out, and I watched the first season and I didn't enjoy it, and it wasn't because it was, quote unquote realistic. it was because I didn't find there was anyone I wanted to root for, and it was
Yeah.
all just very cynical. And I was like, yeah, I don't really see myself following up on this. I'd like to see something uplifting, because what I
Yeah.
had noticed in my entertainment, all over the TV and in film, was things were more and more and more cynical and nihilistic and kind of just like pointless, and I was just not interested. So, and I remember one of my friends was saying that well, it's not like Lord of the Rings. It's supposed to be realistic, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
what is that supposed? First of all, is that supposed to be a compliment? Like, are you
Yeah.
saying that Lord of the Rings is not as good because it's less realistic, and Game of Thrones is better because it is realistic? Because that sounds like cope to me. That sounds
Yeah.
like you're just adding something, making something up, or repeating something somebody told you to justify, story choices that I just don't agree with. It doesn't mean that other people can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And just because you put like alcoholics, because what is realism? Oh, well,
Yeah.
this guy broke his legs and he's in a wheelchair. This guy's an alcoholic. These people are
Yeah.
being beheaded. Everyone's lying on everybody else and manipulating each other. Look, here's incest and titties. And that's realism. It's like, is realism just bad things? Like, is that what you mean by that? So, that's I don't when I hear people say that, it doesn't it's a bit of a red flag, but
Yeah.
I'm usually like open to seeing what they actually mean, because I've seen some stuff like True Detective,
Yeah.
which is a really great show on HBO,
Mhm.
that is, in a lot of ways, it's very realistic, and it's actually really, really nihilistic for most of the show.
Mm.
But all throughout, they give you glimpses of something better, and by the end, it's just like super uplifting, right? So it's okay if you go into the heart of darkness, but you give something nourishing at the end.
Yeah.
But I just I think that saying something is realistic because it's depressing says more about the person claiming it's realistic, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So
Speaking of stories, I'm working on I used to be a writer for quite a while when I was in high school. I'd write short stories all the time. A lot of it was inspired by Ray Bradbury, that kind of stuff. Hitchcock a little bit, some of his stories. Just inspired by a lot of things of that nature. And but I'm doing a very fantasy take on something. I have a world anvil for it. I might try and link it if I can figure out how to do that. But I have a world anvil page called The Lands of Golgotha. Originally, I wanted to focus on the city-state of Gothoria. I wanted to focus more on that, and because Gothoria was supposed to be more like the pagan types with like Gothic architecture, and Golgotha was more like religious and Holy Roman Empire and that kind of stuff. So I was kind of thinking of those two aspects, but I ended up going with more Golgotha because I felt like the analogy of the Savior, who's supposed to like, fend off the demons, demonia, supposed to fend them off, and then he's supposed to return some 400 years later, and it's this big story, and there's this quest and all this stuff. So I've been working on little tidbits here and there all throughout the story, different aspects, trying to flesh out the world, make it more realistic, and I've added one thing, and I want your opinion on it, called male-minded, which is a condition. And it's basically, Ale actually inspired me for this, but it's basically when it's women of a specific culture, the Olgoth Mountains, of the specific culture of the mountains. A lot of women there are male-minded, and they basically take up the roles of men, act as men, and they sacrifice like men, provide like men, and the men kind of take more of a background role in that society. So but the women are bigger, they're broader, they're tall. They're not taller than the men, but they're taller than the average woman. They're bigger, wider, more muscle intake, things like that. So they're kind of built more like men, but they're still women. It's basically Ale. She's built like a fucking tree trunk, honestly. But I mean in the good way, hon. I love you. But yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But anyways, and again, like that was kind of the idea. And I was thinking with that, if women started by a large number taking up men's roles in a sense, then I mean, you can look at it two ways, I guess. I guess one way you can look at it where it kind of cuts into what men do because it's still expected for men to do these things. But at the same time, if women start being acknowledged to do these roles as well, then maybe we'll be more kind to these roles. You know what I mean? That was kind of the idea with that. So I kind of want your thoughts on that.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like an interesting approach.
Yeah.
I wonder though. I wonder though if what men. I don't think that men want people to necessarily be kinder to their role. I think that like because I go back and forth on this. Sometimes I wonder if the issue isn't so much that we don't give men more love, but maybe that we don't ask more of women. Like to actually hold them to a higher standard of behavior and lifestyle. And I don't know how to fix or square that circle per se because I don't think it's easy to do.
Yeah.
But I find that if you look at studies regarding happiness and satisfaction with their lives, men are, despite everything, by and large, happier than women are.
Yeah.
And I don't like. I know conservatives would say, "Oh, it's because she doesn't have a family," and I'm not saying that. But I do think that in a way, if nothing is ever asked of you, if nothing is ever, if you don't have a call to do something, beyond yourself, if everything that you are and do is always okay, and no one ever says, hey, we need you to save the West, and and you have a responsibility to preserving this country and its freedoms, but no one ever does that. No one asks anything of women, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in a way it has an effect because they live their life without meaning. They're just consuming things. They're just like getting stuff. They're just doing them. You're not even allowed to criticize a woman for, and feminists do this. They're the ones responsible because they basically say women can never be judged for anything, no matter what they do. You can basically treat your body like shit. You can smoke a pack a day. You can put on tons and tons of weight. You can, be as promiscuous as you want with as many men as you want. You can have unlimited abortions. You can just do all these things. And we are not allowed to even have an opinion on it, much less legislate anything, which I wouldn't necessarily advocate for. And I think as a result of that, what happens is that you have an entire population of women, not all of them, because, some basically just take it upon themselves to do them and fuck whatever feminists have to say. And when I say feminists, I don't mean just like academic feminists on Twitter. I mean like the entire media machine is composed of feminists. Like
it's all bad.
They're in everything. It's their ideas are the mainstream ideas, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that when women are, when you have a half of the population that is constantly being told that any problems that they have in their life is not of their doing, therefore not theirs to fix, so they don't have to do anything, just keep on, eating whatever you want to eat and living however you want to live, and don't bathe and don't shave your armpits and don't do anything. Men should be lucky to have somebody like you. You are perfect just the way you are. And then they point to women who have actually worked hard and made it in some way, and they say, look at that woman, she did it. That means you don't have to, because she represents you, even though your life is still terrible. And those women, despite the fact that they have been told all this, and they may even repeat this, because I know lots of women like this that have basically said, well, everything sucks, but women are doing well, so I feel better for like 5 minutes because I posted about it online. Those women are miserable. And what happens is that when you create miserable people, those people want to create more misery. and they basically become activists themselves, and the cycle perpetuates. So I wonder, and I do think that there's room to honor men for the good they do, but I would be very cautious of like turning that into a collective statement. Like I never say, I'm taking credit for this man's work on behalf of all men. That's ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah.
And I do think that men deserve compassion, and I give it to them whenever I can. But I think that what might be better is if we offer women opportunities to earn respect.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we need more of, because if women, like Karen is not the kind of person that wants to be told that she's awesome just because.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, Karen, Allison, and Hannah, they all kind of dislike compliments. Like they get a lot of them, and the reason isn't because they don't appreciate, people giving them credit for what work they do, but they don't like that it's sort of like treated as extra special because they're women doing it.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of like it's falling into the same trap, right? Oh, you're a woman, therefore, like, oh, look, you're a woman, and you put that, you put that jar of pickles on the top shelf. Congratulations. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
And most of that comes from feminists too.
Yeah.
So I think what we need is to make everyone hardier, not necessarily like be more motherly towards them. And I think that and this is my belief, I think that we need to go the other way. I think that we need to give more women more opportunities to earn our respect. And that means that men have to hold women to behavioral standards and not just give them credit for breathing correctly. Like, let's not do that.
No, I agree with that. Quite a bit, actually. If we kind of... This kind of reminds me of the debauchery cults in, like, Greece and Rome, that were very big for a while. They were, most of them worshipped the god of wine. Most of them were big into just, orgies and drinking all the time. And most of them, at the end of the day, were fucking miserable. Like, because they didn't achieve anything. They didn't get anywhere because they spent all their time whoring and drinking, So, and that, I think that's true for most people. I mean, whoring is fun, but if you catch crabs at the end of the day, it's not so fun now, is it? Right? Like, so, but again, it's, kind of my deal. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't catch anything. Jesus. Yeah. Given my height, let's just say I had plenty of access to the whammons. Let's just say. So given my height and all the black I wear, so but yeah, no, it's and then Ale comes on and actually, I'll say this. I really do think, and maybe get your opinion on this. I really do think people, well, mostly men, I should say, should strive to get someone similar to Ale in the sense where their identity is more about helping than about being an individual in terms of a relationship. You know what I mean? Like it's more about, well, like I'm disabled personally, and she helps me and I help her. I work on her back. She has terrible muscle back issues, and she kind of, she goes out and works, and we take turns cooking, that kind of stuff. So I mostly feed the cat, but that's just because I'm up at 3 a.m. anyways.
Yeah.
And then I mess up his eating schedule, and then he gets like 3 meals a day because I didn't tell, or 4 meals a day because I didn't tell Ale. By the way, I fed the cat at 3 a.m. So I'm a weird loner in that sense. I'm just like doing shit at 3 a.m. for no reason. Like, but anyways.
Hey, nobody says you have to be on a schedule.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, I get you. Well, Ale kind of does, but other than that.
Just around a similar time.
Yeah, I would.
Like the most random ass
Yeah,
time.
sometimes it's 4 a.m. and I'm just like, you want food, don't you? I'll give you some food. Like, I never tell him no.
I'm the one who actually gives him goodies in it.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, she'll feed him treats, and I just give him food. Like, but I don't even give him as much as she gives him. She gives him like the whole 3rd cup, and I do like 3/4 of a third cup, so it's not as bad. Just because
So
I don't.
obviously he loves you more.
Yeah, so he loves ale more. Even though he lays on me more, it's weird. But anyways,
Don't you?
yeah, no. I just had another question. I think what the any presidents you like historically speaking? You wanna mention?
I don't know. I haven't looked into it historically speaking. I
Yeah.
think I guess if I mean I gotta admit I did like Trump, assuming that he doesn't get to be president again. He did more for men's issues
Oh yeah.
than I think anyone is really going to give him credit for, and
Oh,
in
yeah.
particular historically, I don't think any other
He
have done that.
shot.
I didn't, but I would tell you that I haven't really looked into
No, yeah, I get you.
presidents through history. So
Yeah. Well, he shot down. What was it? It was either the Dear Colleague letter or it was.
yeah. He
Yeah.
shot down the Dear Colleague letter. He basically got Betsy DeVos to reform Title IX stuff, and not only that, but all the peace deals, no new wars.
No
I
new
mean,
wars.
those are men's issues. Like I said,
Definitely.
it's men that go to war. I mean, it doesn't mean women don't, but the overwhelming majority are men.
There was,
and it's not just our men.
Yeah.
It's the men in the countries that he could go to war with, right?
Yeah.
He's he's there's more. I made a list of things. I'm waiting for the results of this election, like when we finally know the answer, to sort of put out my complete list. But Trump's done a lot for me.
Yeah. No,
and,
I agree.
I don't, and I think that in a way, I could not speak to the man's motives.
Yeah.
I won't pretend, and I'm not a ride or die MAGA Trump person. I just look at what's being done and I say I approve of this, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really about camps for me. But I do believe, though, if I had to guess, that this is a man who doesn't need to enter politics because he was already a billionaire. He was already world famous.
Mm-hmm.
He already had all of this. In fact, this has probably put his reputation and his company and his family in more jeopardy than if he had never run to begin with. And I believe that he legitimately was doing what he thought was the right thing. And maybe he was the only person in a position to do that. And I think, it's going to sound really weird, this could be considered a bit of a hot take, I think Kanye was inspired by that and wanted to do the same.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe, because again, the people who make their careers into being politicians and then they get rich off of being politicians, like the Clintons, for example. Their interest, and the Bushes, so that you don't think I'm partisan.
No.
Their interest is in maintaining their hold over the political sphere and basically getting money through that, and also getting power and whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people who are private citizens that just get involved, I don't think they're common, but I think they happen, and I think that sometimes that's because they really do want to fix things, and they think that through the political system they can. There aren't a lot of examples of this, but the only thing I can tell you is that I have run into this often where people have asked me, Sargon has asked me, he's like, you should run in politics, you should run for some kind of office. And I said, I'm not interested in doing that. And what we sort of concluded was that the people who are probably best for political power are the people who are least interested in it.
Yeah.
And so, like everybody's like, oh, I want Tucker Carlson to run, in 2024 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think he will.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't think he's interested.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would be good or not, but I think that the fact that people are saying, I wish this person would run, basically tells you everything.
He used to be like, I forget, it was like CBS or something like that, but he used to be something about either he was the rhino they made fun of or he was some joke Republican or something like that. I forget what it was, but he was not the hot take firing machine that he is today.
Yeah, when he was on Crossfire and stuff, sure.
Yeah, like he wasn't like as smooth of an operator back then as he was. And I remember that time of him and it makes me think that what's going on now is an act. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's just my personal opinion. But I mean, it's weird because like to kind of go back to the Ayn Rand stuff. Have you ever seen any of the videos of her predictions for like society and everything? Because they are eerie. It is so eerie, like just how accurate she predicted society. Like one thing she said is that you go to the movies, but you didn't really enjoy it because movies have become dumb and for the majority, and they're not interesting. And then you go outside and some woman's splayed open, bare naked, talking about periods, and everyone's filming and like all this spectacle. So she talked about all these things that are actually happening, and it's just interesting. You know,
I'm
kind
not
of.
surprised by that.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
probably, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, she came from the same place that Yuri Bezmenov came from,
yeah,
and he
exactly.
also makes a lot of really eerie predictions in
Oh
his
yeah,
lectures that you can watch online.
yeah. I've seen some
So,
of his too, but again, like
yeah.
it's just crazy how, and it seems to be that the people that live under communism are the ones that want nothing the fuck to do with it, right? Like it's just it's one of those things, I guess. Um, Speaking of one of those things, there was something I remembered earlier today. It was about oh yeah, feminism is the only thing I can think of that does this, and it's something where the parody is so true that you can't tell if it's fake or real. Like like that Titanium McGarth fake profile thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know that one. Like the
Oh,
posts.
it's Titania McGrath.
Yeah, McGrath. I always get that name mixed up. But yeah, like that whole thing, like it's because I saw a post she did, or it's really a he, but still I saw the post the character did, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, of course I'm for equality as long as women are favored more than men, and it's satire, but it's still
Yeah.
so real. Like it's eerie. It's like Uncanny Valley, but for words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the kind of the weird, eerie sort of like the parody is so true that it's not parody anymore. Like in terms of feminism, I
Well,
mean, like.
I think it speaks to the predictability
Mm,
of sort of leftist grievance politics,
yeah.
because Titania McGrath, the guy, I forget his real name,
Yeah.
he is basically just like making posts where he dances on that razor's edge of something that is completely absurd, but something that is completely operating within sort of leftist logic in
Yeah.
terms of like the this sort of, because the left sees everything in terms of power differentials. They see
Mm,
everything in terms of power. So if it's historical, or they can twist it to be historical, or it can be sort of distorted to be seen as a power difference between people based on race or gender or sexual orientation, or their body dysmorphia or their class or whatever, then they just view the world that way. All they see are the differences,
mm,
right? It's like I made a post on my Facebook page a while back saying there's two kinds of people in this world, Cain and Abel.
yeah.
And I'm not a religious person, but basically the left is Cain. All
Yeah.
they see is what other people have that they don't have.
Yeah.
And they want it. And they think that the reason why they don't have it is because that person took something from them.
Mm,
That there's something unfair happening. And they need justice. And Cain probably thought he was doing the right thing when he killed his brother.
yeah.
And he was just getting justice, right? So they see the world in terms of these people have more. And this guy who runs this channel, this Twitter, sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
he knows how it works, I think that because it's actually such a simplified way of viewing the world,
Yeah.
I think in general, and also it's you want to understand how it works. In general, people understand the left more than the left understands anybody else.
Yeah. That's true.
And Jonathan Haidt did a study in his book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's his most recent book. And in the study, he came to this conclusion because Jonathan Haidt is a leftist too. He's sort of like, he considers himself, I think, center left, right? So what he's talking about is the far left. But so it's not like coming from a place of bias. He didn't know what this was going to yield or yield rather in terms of like the results.
Yeah.
And what his study found was basically the way that he conducted it was he had people who identified as left wing, people who identified as right wing, and people who identified as sort of neither or centrist or moderates.
Yeah.
In 3 different groups, and he asked them questions about the left or the right. So he would basically ask leftists questions and then say, okay, on this issue, how do you believe a typical leftist would answer this, and how do you believe a typical right-wing person would answer this? And how do you believe a moderate might answer this, right? And then he asked that of all those groups. And then what he was trying to figure out was how well, like just how big is the chasm between what the left believes about what the right believes and what the right believes about the left believes and about what moderates believe about either.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what he found was the right understands what the left believes. Like by and large, it's not a straw man. They understand what the left believes. They understand where it comes from. And the left does not understand what the right believes.
Yeah, no, not at all.
The left believes the straw man version of the right, which are like Nazi racists, sexists that want to legalize rape and, like whatever, right?
Yes.
They want to kill Muslims.
Make women chattel.
Yeah. So they literally believe those things, and the right has a more, let's say, a fairer understanding of the left.
Yeah.
And what they disagree with are simply not even like what the issue is. Like if the left says, "Oh, we need to do something about racism," like the right doesn't, in general, believe that racism is not an issue that should be fixed. Like they generally believe that we should be trying to fix that, or we should be doing more stuff for women and gays and trans people, etc. But that they don't feel that, first off, it's somebody's fault, and so that person should be punished, and they also don't feel that the government should be the solution to those problems.
Yeah.
I think most importantly the latter, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the guy that's way out there saying I don't think any of these things exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here. That's a good question. What do I believe? I've received, as you can imagine, some flack for this, but I've been known to say that from men particularly, I don't think misogyny is a thing. Honestly.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and a lot of that's because now when I say that to people, they say, "Well, what about like Ted Bundy?" And I'm like, he liked murder and sex more than he liked human beings. He didn't hate women. He just liked these things more than life. Like, so it was more of a warping of things. And actually, here's a little something that I kind of put together myself. With Ted Bundy, his execution was not only public, but people celebrated it outside the prison, right? They had fireworks go off and a big barbecue and all this stuff. But they didn't do any of that for, what was the one that ate gays?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah. But they didn't do any of that for Dahmer. Now, that being said, Dahmer, was killed in prison, so it's not like they could have made it public. But when he died, there wasn't celebrations in the street.
There were no celebrations.
Yeah. There was no celebration.
He was just killing men.
Yeah, that's what
it didn't matter that they were gay.
Yeah.
It mattered that they were men.
Yeah, and that's
I think we can disconnect from that easier.
True, yes. And that's what Now that being said, kind of to disprove me a little bit, it was celebrated when John Wayne Gacy, his death was televised. His last meal was televised. His death was celebrated, but he only killed minors.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time people,
children.
Children.
I mean, that's
Yeah. So I'm really just from that evidence, it seems that people have more outrage when children are killed than when men are killed,
or women, yeah,
or women
definitely.
than
It's actually,
both.
I think we actually hold, in many ways, we hold women to higher regard than we do children.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah,
Based on
very.
study, like all of the news I've had to do and all of the things I've looked at, and I think that this is also based on how feminism's goal is to always position women as the biggest victims of anything, and that includes bigger than children, and it comes out in little ways, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say this about I'm beginning to wonder if there is such a thing as misogyny, misandry, racism, any of these isms and phobias, because you can find individual instances of people that do something bad to someone based on, you know, their race or their gender or whatever, their sexual orientation or what have you. But I don't think that it's necessary to give that a name, for one.
Yeah.
Because if I kill someone because I felt like it, and if I kill someone else because they're a woman, why is me killing someone because they're a woman worse?
Yeah.
Or a man, or gay, or black, or whatever. It doesn't matter, right?
No,
because as soon as you start, I think that as soon as you start adding those additional descriptors, you, whether you mean to or not, you kind of create a hierarchy of outrage. And so, like, instances that may not have any racial component to them become racial if the two people involved happen to be of different races. Yeah. And I think that that's by design, because the left is all about how do we create class warfare in this instance, right? So if a white man and a black man get into a fight and the white man kills the black man, then we look at it and we have to see this now through the lens of race. Yeah. But if the white man and the black man get into a fight and the black man kills the white man, then it's just a murder. Yeah. Or it's just an unfortunate incident. And I think that those, when you add in those additional factors, when you have to give something a name or call it a hate crime, I am in favor of just throwing that out, because ultimately you're trying to create a kind of hierarchy of hatred when, you know, like I think Jesse Lee Peterson said this. He says, you know, the reason why he doesn't believe any of those things exist is because it comes down to, you know, people just not having good character. Yeah. And if they're just angry and evil and they want to hurt people, then the motive for them hurting people, if it even exists, but trying to figure it out, is kind of irrelevant, because they are destructive. So, like, Elliot Rodger is the one that gets brought up a lot, right?
Yes, yes.
Feminists are convinced, I mean, absolutely convinced, that what he did was a product of misogyny, even though he killed
more men,
like mostly men. Yeah. Right? Mostly men, including himself. Yeah. And the reason is because of his, you know, videos and maybe his manifesto, and, you know, we talked about his anger at women. Yeah. But he was angry at the world. Yeah. Really. Yeah. And the fact is, you know, this is the reason why I think that these ideas these ideas are not useful. It's not to say that there's no such thing as a person who legitimately hates another person based on these immutable characteristics. Yeah. I think that they exist, but I think that they're so few and far between that it's almost like a pointless word that actually does more harm than good. Yeah. And I don't think we need it. That's what I honestly believe, because, like, most of the time, even racists, you know, or the people that we call racists, most of what they have a problem with has nothing to do with skin color, but it has to do with culture. Yeah. And so, you know, but a culturalist doesn't actually roll off the tongue, right? Yeah. And even when people make assumptions about people based on their skin color, the assumptions are cultural. So the issues they have, you know, like, for example, you meet a black guy from Africa, and he basically came here from Ghana or from Zimbabwe or something, right, or the Congo. And he's, like, trying to build a small business, and he's got, like, you know, he's driving a cab, and he's saving money and stuff. And I've met guys like this, right?
Yeah, me too.
We just don't see them the same way. Like, people don't judge those men based on their skin color, because Africans that emigrate to the United States their culture is nothing like blacks that live here.
Yeah.
And even
nothing.
Africans avoid blacks.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the
yeah.
problem can't be skin color.
Yeah.
The problem is culture. And so this is the thing. Like if it's just a matter of, and again, there are like white people whose culture is closer to that of those blacks, of blacks that live in the ghetto. This is what we're talking about when we talk about cultural differences.
Yeah.
White people who live in the ghetto are going to be more like them. So
Yeah.
clearly it's a cultural thing and not at all a race thing. But you see, this is part of the framing. So I've just been consuming so much content and reading so much about this stuff that I it's my belief that those terms, those isms and phobias, they're, first of all, they're not very useful. Second of all, they're mostly covering for different forms of misandry, if it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Because if you have a problem with black culture, you really have a problem with black men.
Yeah.
Like,
really.
you're generally not worried about black women, but you're worried about black men. If you're like going through and you're like a really tough neighborhood, and it's like there's just a lot of drug dealers, a lot of gangbangers, and you're worried about getting jumped. It's not women that are going to jump you.
Yeah.
It's men. If you're a black man and you're passing through like Charlottesville or something, and you're worried that you might get lynched or something, you're not worried about white women doing that.
Yeah.
You're worried about white men doing that.
Yeah.
If you're in the UK and you're in like, I don't know, like a Muslim neighborhood, and you see like some rough-looking Muslims that maybe they're threatening your society or whatever, you're worried about the Muslim men. You're not worried about Muslim women. They're not, even though you should be like taking into account the women. In general, we don't.
Yeah.
Like, there were no, like, I always say that, I don't. Nobody gives a fuck about lesbians.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I say that not because I dismiss lesbians. I say that because lesbian women generally, even in countries that are intolerant towards homosexuality, like Saudi Arabia, they get a slap on the wrist there.
Yeah.
It's about being a gay man. So, like, the problem is that the men are the ones that are actually that are dealing with most of the stuff, whether that's judgment or they have to worry about persecution by their government. And the reason is not necessarily because they're men, so I don't want to paint them as victims. It's because a gay man in an Islamic country is not fulfilling his sacred duty.
Yeah.
Because he's not starting a family, right? Like they would even say, if you feel gay, that's your business, but don't behave gay.
Yeah.
Fuck a woman, impregnate her, start a big family because we need more kids.
Yeah.
So it's about them neglecting their duty. That's what gets them in trouble.
Okay.
And the same thing goes for lesbians. But in general, if you're a lesbian woman and you're in, an Islamic country that's extremely oppressive, because they're not all oppressive, but if you're in one of the bad ones, they're probably going to tell you have to get married and you have to have babies, you have to do this for Allah, and that's it.
Yeah.
And, then they just do it. They just close their eyes and think of baseball or whatever.
Think of baseball.
Get through it. But I don't think that, by and large, like all of these arguments about like class struggle between races and religion and immigrant status and cultural differences, they're really just veiled. They're just covering up the threat narrative around men.
Yeah.
And they're painting it as something else. And everybody, like on all sides of the political spectrum, do this. All of them.
Yeah.
Most people can't. If I tell them, when you talk about, homophobia, you're just talking about like men, right? Because nobody gives a shit about lesbians.
Yeah.
Like
no
they
kidding.
just don't. It's men, because men have a duty that we expect of them. The word faggot meant a bundle of sticks, and what was also it meant was like a burden.
Yeah.
Like us, it's like a big thing to carry.
Yeah.
So men were called fags or faggots because they were a burden on society if they were gay, because they weren't doing their part, right? So that's where you can't you could call a lesbian a faggot, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way, because it doesn't have the same historical meaning.
Yeah.
So, and I think that I think it's something that not only is it something that people don't know, but if I confront them with it, they hate to hear it.
Yeah.
They hate to hear it. But it's true. I believe that, and in a way, I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah.
But I won't allow the this kind of class struggle grievance crap to keep going, because that gets people killed.
Yeah, it does.
So.
I will say kind of what you get earlier about adding these unnecessary words. That's really the true magic of mankind is words, right? And that's kind of a thing in the Bible and even like in Harry Potter. It's the words that are magic. When you create a word, you create a concept, an idea, and all the shit that comes with it, right? Like, and you can also poison a word. That's something I've especially noticed from the left and everything.
That's what they do.
Yeah,
they
you poison
language,
a word.
so it's impossible for us to talk about anything.
Yeah, exactly. And Rennemercam made an excellent cartoon back when he did Dark Cheese, which, God, I missed that show. But anyways, back when he did Dark Cheese, he did one about poison culture, right? And it was basically they weren't allowed to use the word poison. So then they had to, like, they couldn't use any of the letters that were used in the word poison in language. So then they had to speak umbuvarif, like, like all these made up words and everything. So it's that kind of, it was the whole rape culture narrative, but he switched rape with poison because I think it went over the censors well in Britain. I think don't want to get in trouble over there. But again, like but also with that, I'm curious. I've never met an MRA that calls men oppressed, but I'm wondering because it seems that people.
I've never heard it.
Yeah, I've never heard it either. But behind that, it seems that people kind of, I don't know if it's just the word has been corrupted or because when I think of oppression, I think like if a specific group of people is denied a right or denied something that is afforded by their own constitution, right? That's what I would think would be oppression, and by that definition, men would fit under it. But I still wouldn't, like no one would want to call men oppressed. And I'm curious what you think about, like, is there just some connection with that people don't like making, or what exactly, what do you think about that?
I think that oppression has a very specific definition. And while you could make an argument for some institutional challenges that men have that are literally coming from the state, they would come from the thing that I said, like they're the only ones that can be drafted.
Yeah.
So they don't actually own their bodies, and they are the ones that pay the overwhelming majority of taxes. Now, the problem is that the taxes argument, it's not that it's harder to make, because I think it's pretty much it's pretty much self-explanatory, like it's obvious.
Yeah.
But the average person doesn't think taxes are in fact a kind of oppression, right? And so it's a harder case to make because average people are just not going to listen. And so maybe it's better not to make that one. I mean, I do sometimes because I don't care, but I think that most of the time the issue is this too. Feminists' central argument is that women have been historically oppressed by men and are still oppressed by men, and that men hate them. And they oppress women at their own expense, at the expense of women, and to the benefit of men, right? That's the patriarchy theory.
Yeah.
When MRAs are described as feeling as though men are the ones that are really oppressed, it always comes from feminists. They're the ones that make that claim. They say MRAs think that it's men that are actually being oppressed.
Yeah.
And they say that because they know how absurd it sounds.
Yeah.
Even if you can find some truth to it, it's only said to poison the well. So the people listening are like, men are oppressed? Come on. That's ridiculous. They literally built everything,
at the end of a whip.
It's used against them, and I think that if you try to claim that men are actually the ones oppressed, first of all, I don't think that would be a very easy case to make, because a lot of what men do, they do so voluntarily.
Yes.
Like the majority of it. So you can't be oppressed by something that you choose to do.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to call them like they have problems, and some of those problems are
legal,
systemic. They're systemic, right? Some of those problems, and I don't think oppress is it's a word that the feminists have poisoned to a degree.
Okay.
But I don't think it's actually that useful. And also, if you claim that men are oppressed, well, then that puts you in the mud pit with the feminists who are claiming that women are oppressed.
Okay.
If you basically instead say, and this is true, if you instead say, men have problems, women have problems.
Yeah.
Some of men's problems are institutional problems or systemic problems.
Yeah.
Some of men's problems are cultural. Actually, the majority of them are probably cultural, the overwhelming majority, because it comes down to the way in which we treat men in our everyday life, the way that we see them, the way in which we educate them, the way in which we treat our boys and our men. It inevitably leads to the political, which means it inevitably leads to the institutional. So I would say that most of men's problems are cultural, and that they're just problems or issues, and some of them are institutional or systemic, like family courts and child custody, and one could make the argument for the kind of prison industrial complex, because more men are imprisoned. One could, and these are not easy, but one could make the argument for public schools because of the way they treat boys, and that is a public institution, which means it's funded by taxpayers, and it's run by the government, and it's operated mostly by feminists. And that is a direct product of that. But and also circumcision, which hasn't been made illegal. There's a number of things you could say are systemic, and but I think the majority of them are cultural, because the only way you're going to change circumcision is if you change everyone's mind on circumcision. And then you'll get rid of it, right? So it's like one has to happen first, the other follows. And I think that it just, first off, if you make the argument that way, you're being more honest. Second of all, it does put you on, it gives you a moral edge over feminists, because you get to say men and women both have problems. They're unique to each gender. Some of them are institutional. Some of them are just cultural, right? And then you leave it at that. So
honestly, this might give me some hate, but I try to think of women's problems, and a lot of times I'm drawing blanks. I mean, is that a bad thing? Am I missing something? I mean,
no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I talk to my wife every day about this stuff.
Okay.
I think that the amount that we have given, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how I think women need to be held to a higher standard of behavior rather than being given everything. I think that the welfare state has harmed women. So I think that you could make the argument that that's a systemic problem. I think that the abortion issue has also harmed women. And I know it seems strange, but what I mean is, I think that we have not had the courage to really confront and reconcile the abortion conversation, because the idea, her body, her choice, is a bit oversimplified. And I think that the counter argument is not refined enough, and it comes across as a bit like religious preaching. And so you have to find, like the pro-life argument, so you have to find a way to actually really have this discussion. And again, if it shakes out, and I'm under the belief that the abortion issue is going to come down to whether or not we can agree that a fetus is a life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a life that deserves protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's whether or not it's a life. And right now, where we are is actually kind of interesting about abortion. I was watching a playthrough of The Last of Us Part 2.
Mm.
Okay. You ever heard of this game?
Yeah. Chutes
I was
and Ladders, the
hosting
sequel.
streams.
Yeah.
I was hosting streams with Mike J, and he was playing through it.
Yeah.
And there's a point. Okay, so it's important to note that Neil Druckmann, the guy who wrote the game,
Mm-hmm.
and the head director, and his whole team, they're all leftists, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they all believe, like, they're all big, like, intersectional feminist types. I mean, Neil Druckmann has basically said that Amy Sarkeesian is a personal hero of his.
Oh, God, no.
All that, right? So his beliefs on abortion are pretty much standard leftist beliefs, right? Her body, her choice. Whenever she wants, it's on her, right? Yeah. And so there's a scene in the game. And it's funny because this kind of leaked out, this little logical loophole. There's a scene in the game where you're playing as Ellie, and you're fighting enemies, and you kill one in this sort of dramatic moment because she's sort of a character, a named character in the story. Yeah. You kill this woman, and right after, Ellie discovers the woman was pregnant. And when she discovers the woman was pregnant, she is filled with more sadness than before. It was like extra terrible, right? Yeah. Oh, I didn't just kill a woman, I killed a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm watching this, and I'm like, wait a minute. If the woman was pregnant and it's just a clump of cells, why are you upset?
Yeah. No
and what I concluded this is what I came to the realization, because I had a little back and forth about it, and I said, well, the thing that it seems is interesting to me is they tell us later, because then you get to know this character that she killed, that this woman is pregnant, but she's going to have the baby. She's got a name picked out and everything, and it's all figured out, right?
Yeah.
She's going to have the baby. She knows what she's going to call it. And I was like, so whether or not the baby or the embryo is a life right now is entirely contingent on whether or not the mother decides it is.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that the person carrying the child decides whether or not they want to abort the child. That's a different decision.
Yeah. They're
deciding whether or not the child is a child.
Mm.
So it's either a clump of cells, which I'm going to abort at the first opportunity, and I haven't named it, and I don't know what the gender is. I don't care. It's basically just garbage, or it's got a name, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to raise the child, etc. And I said, well, I don't think that that's the way we can measure whether or not an embryo is a life or not.
Yeah.
It cannot be determined by the person carrying the baby, because that puts, in my mind, too much power in the hand of the woman carrying the child. I know that may not be a popular opinion, because I was pro-choice for many, many years, and I'm not necessarily against. I'm not anti-abortion or anything like that right now, but I do think that this is just another issue where we have allowed women to decide whether or not a baby is real, depending on her opinion.
Yeah.
And that's just not an objective way of deciding that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's really off topic.
Okay, fine.
I just thought it was really funny because Druckmann himself is super pro-choice, right?
Yeah.
So he has demonstrated his own bias in the story without realizing it, because he had his main character, who was also progressive, get really upset that she murdered a pregnant woman. And then later, when another pregnant woman was going to be murdered, she used the fact that woman was pregnant to protect her from being killed. It's like, no, don't. She's pregnant, right? And it actually saved that woman's life. And I'm like, well, so that woman's life has more value because she's pregnant?
Yeah.
See, this is what I mean. The logic doesn't actually add up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, long story short, I think that women do have some systemic problems, but they don't appear to be problems at first, because it's essentially us giving everything to them.
Yeah.
But it takes away all of their agency. It causes them to self-destruct and be really depressed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give them a sense of purpose. Even the responsibility of deciding whether or not you want to get pregnant could be something you could take a little bit of pride in if people actually cared enough to treat you like an adult. And I think that it doesn't sound like it's good, but trust me, like when men have to do things based on like what they're basically acting not in their interest but in the interests of their society and their civilization and the people around them, they find a lot more gratification, whether they know it or not. And I do think that that's something that we don't offer to women. So yeah, I mean, there's that, and there's probably a lot of cultural problems. Like I said, it's essentially just the other side of the coin of men's problems are women's problems, because there's always a flip to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that part. That's maybe I worded that statement wrong, because that's not what I wasn't saying that. Because again, if you negatively affect men, you're going to negatively affect women, especially if those women depend on those men, or if they love them, or their connection to them, things like that. We're the same species. We might be different genders, but we're the same species. We depend on each other. We're a social pair bonding species. We depend on each other. We love each other. We help each other. There's a lot of good, and there's a reason why there was hope left in the box, as I like to say. Because there's we have hope for the future, because we know it can always get better, right? There's always the possibility for it to get better, and I think that's actually helped me through quite a lot of depression, that statement, which again, it's kind of interesting, because I took a bit of a hiatus from YouTube for about a month, and I literally like just checked my YouTube videos like yesterday, I think is when I messaged you. And then I noticed that I had like 0 views on the last 3 videos, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Have I been blacklisted? I don't know. So it's hard to say. I mean, the only thing I've really done that might, cause any issue is my circumcision video that I did, or a video about circumcision. I didn't, it wasn't an actual one, but
you didn't perform a circumcision.
Yeah,
on
no,
YouTube?
no. Wow, there are beheadings, so like, but no, yeah.
Yeah, but beheadings aren't against terms of service.
Yeah, no kidding. That's funny, but no, yeah. And I actually got into I like to call it the meat and potatoes of the video with the circumcisions, because I found the actual data that's reported of. And these are all preventable. The UTIs are all preventable. The most common UTI for men is yeast infections. And that's preventable. It's called don't sleep with a girl with a yeast infection. And it's called, take a shower every other week or so. Right? Like there's preventions to that. And they're easily preventable. And they're not even fatal. It's not like you get them, you're going to die. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're removing a very vital piece of skin, which is in itself an organ, we're removing it just to prevent some, a slight number of cases of preventable conditions that are themselves not dangerous, right? Like, it's the logic for circumcision is weird. And I asked because I myself am circumcised, and I asked my folks, well, why did we do that? And they said, well, came down to 2 reasons, essentially. It was your dad is, and his dad is, and his dad is, so it's kind of tradition. And it also came down to, well, we didn't want you getting diseases, right? We didn't want you getting sick from it. We didn't want you, and I even asked them. I said, if I get a cut in my skin and someone coughs in it, I'm going to get that sickness, right? And they're like, well, yeah, skin protects you from infection. We all know this. But for some reason, if that skin's over the glands, you see the logic there? Like it gets weird. And again, and in the video, I tried to be as charitable as I could be, because I don't think because I've seen some people do, I don't know if they're MRAs or not, but I've seen some people, mostly like intactivists and some MGTOW types, do this. But they say that the parents who get their children circumcised are monsters. I've heard that argument before, and I don't think that's true. And I say that because it's not like these people know the truth about circumcision. They don't. Yeah, I know. They don't. It's not like they don't know the real facts. They don't know what it actually does. They don't know how painful it is. They don't know that it technically causes trauma in a lot of cases. They don't know that they could remove too much. They could cut too much skin. They could. There's so many ways it could go wrong, and people don't know this about that. So calling them monsters. Now, if I knew I was going to damage my son, that's different. But if I thought I was helping him, you see the me? It's the intention. It's the purpose behind it. If I thought, well, this is gonna make him live longer, then how am I a monster? I have every pure intention for my child, and that's what my folks did. So I don't blame them for my circumcision. I mean, I make jokes about, if only I had a foreskin, just to joke a little bit. But again, it's at the end of the day, they did what they thought was right, and I can't fault them for that. I really can't. I mean, that's why I don't think they're monsters, because it's not like doctors. I mean, the Pediatrics Association lied, and I even showed the data in that video. I showed the data that they themselves found, that same data, and there's no way you can look at those numbers. It was like 0.7% of circumcisions actually prevent a UTI, like points, like not even 1%. And there's like a 13% chance, I believe was the number, of an extra complication causing. I know it was 31%. An extra complication caused from circumcision. You might get a secondary complication 30% of the time. So again, that's just the benefits do not outweigh the risks. And even though the Pediatric Association says, like they actively say, this can prevent cancer, they also say we do not recommend this under all circumstances.
Right.
How can you say both things? That if it prevents cancer, then you would tell everyone to fucking get it done, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's cancer has a high mortality rate, which genital cancer, I mean, prostate cancer is more lethal but more rare. So, though the most lethal is lung cancer, and I'm not sure if that's because a lot of people have it or because it in and of itself is actually lethal. Like, it's weird how numbers work, but so, and I will admit I kind of miss your one ball jokes. I kind of miss those.
Oh.
You used to do those quite a bit. They were hilarious. I loved them.
Yeah, I figured it got old at this point.
No. I just slip a ball out for me every now and then.
Once in a while.
Yeah. Just
I'll testicle everybody.
Yeah. God, I love you guys and your puns. It's great. But yeah, no. Again, like I just my testiculars. Yeah. I'm not even going to talk about my junk because it might default some law of nature. But anyways, that's all I'm gonna say. But no,
okay.
Yeah. Shut up, woman. No, yeah.
Be the horse.
Yeah, no. I'm 6'10", so you can do the math. But no,
Horse.
Yeah, horse. Anyways, so but yeah, like it just
Horse monster.
yeah. Speaking of horse monster, Ale did draw me as like a dragon tree horse vampire monster once.
Vampire.
Yeah, it was a vampire tree dragon. It was pretty metal. I might have to add that to my story. Vampire tree dragons. That'd be awesome. Vampire tree dragons. That's so cool. I mean but in human form. Yeah, there were. You ever heard of the game Dragonvale? You ever heard of that? It was kind of a phone game kind of thing. Yeah. But I beat the piss out of that fucking game. Basically you like collect dragons and breed elements together and make new dragons, that kind of stuff. And there's all these specials and rares. It's a merging kind of thing. It takes time, but it's a fun thing to do, kind of in the background kind of thing. And there's all these themes and everything, and they just kept adding content as it went on and all that stuff. And so that was, they actually have a tree dragon, which I thought was kind of cool when Ale talked about, like, we just made a joke about it and she turned it into an actual thing. She's pretty good at, she's pretty good at that stuff. But yeah, like, and again, it just, I wonder. Okay,
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if this information, the actual like my video, if that was made more public and mainstream and everything, probably it would happen if I made a condensed version because mine was a bit pedantic to be honest. But if this information is more out there, it kind of makes me wonder, will that change the narrative, so to say? Will it change? Be And by the narrative, I mean like what I say about they're not monsters because they don't know, right? If they, it's kind of like the religion thing. Like it's I don't want you to live in sin, but you don't know about sin unless, or if you don't know about sin, then you're not going to hell. Here, let me tell you about sin, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's that, yeah. So I don't know if that's gonna change anything. I mean, I hope things I do changes something. I
Well,
honestly,
all you gotta do is, keep on talking. I think,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
you know, I didn't know anything about this,
mm,
and like I said, I got caught up in it out of just from what I was seeing around me,
yeah,
and decided, I wanted to help out in some small way, and now I do this as a job, and
yeah,
if it doesn't matter how many people you reach, because you
yeah.
only need to reach like one other person that just wants to talk about this, and I think
That's true.
that's the best way to. So yeah, I think it's worth it.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna get like there's no magic bullet for this
yeah,
because
no,
we are trying to deprogram like billions of people
yeah,
over like what 100 years probably
yeah.
of
Essentially,
this shit, and
yeah,
it's just not gonna happen overnight. So
yeah. No kidding. And again, like I, I've been told I have a heart of gold. I've been told that a lot. I think El does too, and I just,
mhm,
I want to help people. I want to be there and kind of help people and get people through this because this was a bit of a journey for me as well. Because I
sure,
myself, actually, here's a little case that because you mentioned that a woman might not get custody if she's like on cocaine or something. Um, but I actually saw a case in the military where a woman did get custody and she was tested positive for drugs
sure, I could see it.
and she still got custody and he
Yeah,
had he had to move off the airbase because they weren't married and it's a provincial thing and this father he was a friend of my dad and he holy crap he was a engineer, right? And he built for his children. He had a daughter and a son. Son was a bit younger, but they were about kid age, 8 or 10 or whatever. And he built for his kids an actual like mechanical functional kind of um, it like they can actually sit in it and pilot it and stuff. But it's like it's like a bulldozer kind of thing, you know, that he built out
yeah.
of like scrap metal and shit. Like just really cool. He showed me this video of it, and his daughter was driving it. She was just having the funnest time you've ever seen a kid have. And I'm hearing a story. This was at the mall. I was hearing a story, and I'm like, how the fuck did you lose custody? How? Like you are there for your children in spite of working 12, 14-hour shifts in the fucking military. You build things for your kids. You give them fun. Like you make
Mhm.
them learn and just all the things a lot like the things my father's done for me. And I just saw how much effort fathers put into things. And 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 again, as Paul Elam says, in the men's movement, men want to be dads. They want to have children. They want to,
Yep,
most men want to have children. Like
yep.
so it's kind of interesting how again that kind of goes back to the dynamic of right and left and freedom versus security
Security. Yep.
because again women are far more against abortion than men ever fucking will be. Let's be frank. I don't
Oh
think
yeah, definitely.
far more opposed to it. Huh?
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up soon. Yeah, no, kind of a kind of to wrap this up a little bit.
Okay.
I would, if this is at all possible, if you could help me out here, if this is at all possible, I would like to interview the trio if anyone's interested. You know, Hannah, Karen, and Allison. And perhaps Randomer Cam. Those are the four I'm really interested in. And I'd interview anybody else who's willing to come on. I mean, you know, I'd be more than happy to.
Sure.
But you know, I'll message you my email so they can contact me or whatever, and everything. So again, I really appreciate you having this chat with me and doing the interview and everything. And it was great having you. And you got some pretty good takes. And I gotta admit, you do spicy very well. You know, I've seen you get spicy in the videos. You're just like, don't be a pussy. Listen, like it's great. It's great. You know, like
Yeah, well, I'm kind of tired of people being spineless.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So yeah, I do get like that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But
yeah, it's
I
so.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand that people can be like afraid of confrontation.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I just, you know, I kind of want to get people to sort of understand you guys a bit more. Maybe you and I can do it like part 2 sometime if ever you're available. But
Sure.
but again, just, you know, kind of to, you know, just to get to know you guys and whatnot, because I've been watching HBR for, again, since like 2013 or 14, around there. And again, I just, you know, it's really interesting because you're right. You guys are not a monolith, and each one is their individual, and I like that about it. And I think Random McCam said something about like it's easy for it's easy for a collectivist to be the leader because they love, you know, collectives, but they're not that good at it. But individuals, getting a group of individuals together is like herding cats, right? Like it's not that easy. So yeah, it is if you open a can of tuna, though. That's what Ale says. So she's pretty right about that. But yeah. I'll yeah. Do you want to talk after this, or do you want to go, or what do you want to do?
Oh, I gotta go.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I gotta eat something. I'm ready to like eat this microphone.
Yeah, no, I get you. That's just, you know, pop me a message and we'll just chat through there, and you know.
Okay.
It was great talking with you, Brian, and you have a good night.
Thanks, you
Yeah,
too.
you too.
And thanks for having me on. It was a good chat.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Finally, no, I'm kidding. No, no, yeah. That was, yeah. I was using Ale's phone the whole time. Let me turn this down because my audio is pretty loud. I only tuned up the audio so you guys could hear Brian better. Again, that was Brian. You know, Brian Martinez. That was his little thing. This will just be a blank screen for now. So yeah, that was my little chat with him. I know this was kind of a long video. Sorry again for the errors in Wi-Fi and all that stuff. I'm trying to work out a better system for this. Again, you know, like I'm just trying to make that work. And to kind of reflect on what he was saying, I really agree with the vast majority of what he said, because I think he raises some very valid points in terms of, you know, if we sort of maybe if I guess it could go either way. Either if we value men more, or if we, because that's probably not going to happen, let's be real. But either we value men more, or we give women more responsibility, or we expect more of them. Because the big thing with feminism is that they don't want us to expect shit from women. They don't want us to expect them to be human, let alone be responsible. You know, and a lot of them are, you know, becoming lesbians and aliens and losing their fucking chromosomes and dyeing their eyes fucking black and all this crazy fucking body morph shit, you know. Which I've been known to say that this is the dark timeline for liking fat chicks, because holy crap, are a lot of them crazy now. That wasn't the case. Well, I know I'm with you. I'm just talking for the other Chevy Chasers out there. Well, I know, but 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 again, like, you know, it's see back when I was dating, because I'm no longer in the market, obviously. Back when I was dating, yeah, I know. There wasn't, you know, the feminism thing was it didn't move to fat chicks like this. Like it didn't evolve to that point. It didn't, because I think, oh crap, I forgot to ask about that. But no, I think that, for example, um, you know, with, and this kind of goes back to my theory on Charles Manson, because I thought he was Me Too'd, but that's what I forgot to mention to Brian. But they, I've heard claims that Manson specifically targeted women with small breasts. He targeted women who didn't feel beautiful because he was a wet fish, honestly. He was a total wet fish in terms of charm. And Bundy was this super cunning craftsman linguist. And, you know, so, but they talk about him like he was Bundy, and he was a wet fish in terms of fucking charm, really. And again, like, so that's why I think it was Me Too. But I've been told that they considered him charming because they themselves were insecure about their own body. Now, that being said, I think that's a big thing as to why feminism targets fat chicks, because they feel the same way. They've always felt that way. They've always felt that they're insecure because of their size. They're made fun of a lot as children, and that is unfortunate. Although, in my experience, when you're treated poorly, it tends to make you a better person. I don't know why. That's what's happened to me. I was treated like shit as a child, by every other fucking child on the planet except for like 2 or 3. And, you know, I then ended up becoming this person that's very forgiving and very understanding and very logical and everything. And I don't think I would be half of those things if it wasn't for people being rotten to me. It cultivates you, I guess is what I'm saying. And again, like, I think that's a big thing that men are going with, is the fact that they themselves are, I mean, they're being cultivated to be hard workers, you know. And that's probably never going to change. But women are being cultivated with all this praise and lavish and luxury and love and admiration just for existing, that they don't want to work. They don't want to provide. They don't want to do anything. They think, well, since I'm so damn special, you have to pay for my money and shit. Andy McGowan? I don't know. Oh, that Andy. Yeah, no, yeah. He's a guy I used to run into at the mall. Yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, no, again, like, it's weird to me how, you know, men are treated like such shit, even though they're treated like shit. They're happy. And they're happy because they have purpose, they have meaning, they have drive, they have something to do, they have something to achieve, right? If you start at the bottom, all you can do is work your way up. Now, with women, it's the flip side. With them, they're at the top, all you can do is go down. And that's why women are more depressed than men are. That's why women have more troubles in terms of, like, depression and anxiety and PTSD. Like, we attribute those things to women. And there's kind of a reason for it. It's not that true, but it kind of is a little bit. We attribute it to them partly because of the victim narrative, but partly because it's plain as day, right? We see them going through these depression spells because they start at the top and they have nothing to strive for. There's nothing to build yourself up. So all they do is fall. And how we're treating men and women and the narrative behind it is toxic to both. And I think that's a big thing Brian was trying to get at, is that to both, it's terrible. Like, we're making men these work machines and we treat them like garbage. And then we make these women these beauty machines that, you know, all they do is just stand there and look pretty and they have nothing to do. And then they just collapse under their own weight. And it's very toxic for both of us. And there's a reason why feminism portrays the MRM as being, you know, a boys' club of misogyny. They do that because if you're told those things, then you'll never talk to an MRA. You'll never, you know, go to us and be like, okay, what do you guys believe? What do you guys think? What's going on here? Because you assume that that I almost said lesbian, that the feminists, well, that's not too far from the truth. The feminists are themselves telling the truth. That's what you think. And they're some of the biggest liars on the planet, honestly. The vast majority of feminist statistics are bullshit. You can easily replace, if you put feminism in front of any noun, like if you treat feminism as an adjective, you can easily replace that word with the word bullshit, and it would make perfect sense. Easily. Fucking easily. Feminist math, bullshit math. Feminist history, bullshit history. It's all that's really what it is at the end of the day. You know, they go on this religious narrative. They go on this narrative of religion that's like, oh, well, women have been oppressed all throughout history, and the proof is the rape stats, not looking at the stats for men, who the fuck cares? But, you know, because of the rape stats for women and all that, they've been oppressed all throughout history, and that's why we need to build women up and give them a fucking statue, build a statue to their good graces. Here's the problem with feminism. You're not giving women a reason to live. You're not. People need a reason to fight, because life is suffering, life is pain, life is hell. We need a reason to fight through it. Men have that reason. It's called women, right? It's called achievement. It's called... Now, unfortunately, that system's so flawed that there's a whole bunch of outdraft men, mostly incels, who are mostly disabled, so don't think of them as evil monsters either. You know, again, you know, there's all these outdraft men who are just kicked to the fucking curb because they can't achieve. Typically due to physical or mental limitations, typically. And again, kind of the thing with that is that because of these limitations that people have, a system's only going to work so well, right? You're only going to get so far with any current system, with any certain way like that. You're only going to get so far, and that's very true, and that's more or less fine. There's nothing's going to be perfect. We get that. But a system in which we give women more responsibility, we give them a reason to do something. If they're expected at all, which they're not, but if they are, if they're to be expected at all to work, well, they are expected, kind of. Depends where you live. If you live in California, you have to work. Not one person can get a fucking apartment unless you're fucking rich. And, you know, but if you live in like bumfuck Iowa, and one person's, you know, working full time or whatever, then they more or less can pay everything. Now Ale and I kind of split it half and half. You know, that's what we do, because I only get so much through the government because I'm disabled. Again, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so which I'm surprised Brian didn't ask what that was. I'm surprised. I'll message to him. But yeah, no. Again, like I would love to talk to the other honey badgers. That'd be great. I really want to talk to those four, but I'd be willing to talk to like the other Mike J, I think. I'd be willing to talk to him. I mean, he seems kind of cool. I'm willing to talk to anybody, but like at the same time, those are the four I really want to talk to. Because those are the four I have the most, you know, fun watching. Nothing wrong with Mike J. I think he's a cool dude, actually. He's, how do I say this nicely? He's a little bland, you know. Like he doesn't have as much of a character to him, you know. But that's actually his appeal, if anything, because he's just, you know, just a regular dude, kind of doing dude stuff, and that's cool. I'm fine with that, but you know. But again, like, I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I think we need to sort of respect men. We need to go back to respecting men, because men are not respected at all in this fucking society, and it's disgusting. It really is. We don't respect men. We don't respect their bodily autonomy. We don't respect their legal rights. We don't respect their parental rights. None of that shit. We expect all we protect and expect all these things for no, well, not really expect, but we protect all these things for women, right? We give them these things, and I think Brian's right in terms of women having problems. They have problems because of the welfare state. That I agree with wholeheartedly. They have problems with the welfare state, and they kind of have problems with abortion. I'm a little iffy on that, honestly. I see what he's getting at. Again, Brian makes very well cases. He's very well spoken, but again, I think that's kind of just. I don't know how I feel about abortion, because I get both camps. I get, it's her body, her choice. I get that. But I think legally men should have some say in this. That's what I think. I think men should be able to opt out of parenthood, or like if she wants to keep it, then, he can just say, I don't want to pay for it. Fuck you. I'm leaving. And that's his right. And the reason why we're going to do that is to prevent cases like the one where the woman found a fucking used condom and she impregnated herself with some rich man's spunk and then collected him for child support. Like, she literally used his DNA against his will, essentially raped him, and created life just so she could get money. And that's not demonized in society, and it fucking should be. Especially if life is suffering like everyone fucking claims it is, right? Like, so it's just weird. But again, Brian makes excellent points. He really does. That's kind of why I wanted to talk to him first, just because he can really set the groundwork for everything. I really want to talk to Allison, because I think her and I differ quite a bit politically, honestly, and I kind of want to talk to her about that, just because it would be cool to see her kind of her positions and everything, because I think she's more left leaning. I think Brian's more right leaning, which, I mean, either way is fine, really, but I'm more right myself, so I would. That's why I agree with Brian so much, just because we share a lot of the same politics and everything. And yeah, the Libertarian Party is such bullshit. It really is. Holy crap. They're a one-issue party. That's the problem. They're a one-issue party, and they're mostly leftists. Honestly, they're mostly leftists. Well, actually, no, I think they're mostly right-leaning. They're mostly right-leaning, but the party itself is poisoned via the left, right? It's sort of the right moving further left, sort of, and that's how they steal votes from the right specifically, because if it wasn't for that party, those people would have voted right. But a lot of the policies in the Libertarian Party are more left-leaning because of their interjection. Which, I mean, if you want, like, sort of a third party, I guess a bit of both kind of makes sense, kind of. But I think you should just go with a different fucking spectrum. I mean, if you're going to do libertarian, do libertarian. Don't do right plus left. Do up. Wait, is it up or down? Authoritarian is up. So do the down party, right? The party of a down. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, just do the down party and, make it actually like on the political compass, left, right, down, right? If you really want an actual liberty party, an actual party based on small government, kind of in the middle, left and right wise, but small government, not government interaction, not world policing, not dealing with issues like that, then I'd be all for it. I'd be more than happy for it. I mean, I personally think we should legalize weed, personally, just because I think contraband is stupid, personally. But although one person I really do watch a lot is Razor Fist, and he mentions that if you legalize weed in pockets, it will make it a congregation center, and it'll turn that congregation center forever blue, and that's true. But I wonder if you make it legal across the board, will that then make it so? This is a theory, though. Will that then make it so people just stay in their area and they do it if they want? You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna do something more if it's legal. But on the flip side, if it's illegal, you have a thrill to it. There's a thrill to doing something illegal because you're not supposed to. You know that. A lot of people feel guilt, but a lot of other people feel a thrill, and that's a big reason why crime is a thing. It's for the thrill, the adrenaline rush, the I might get caught, I might go to jail. Oh my God, this is so much fun, right? Like it's it's like when you almost die, right? Like you're crossing the street and you almost get hit by a bus, and you're like, oh my God, that was amazing, fuck! Like your heart's racing and fucking yeah, all that stuff. So even though your life flashed before your eyes, you're like, holy shit, that was fun, right? Like, so that's part of human nature. But anyways, I think that's about all I have to say for the After Effects after show, whatever. I think I'll be doing After Effects for all of them, I think. Now I gotta think of what to title this fucking thing. I always suck with titles. I can never think of a fucking title. But no, I just hope the audio came through good on that, on Brian's part, because we had to switch to Aile's phone because my Wi-Fi sucks. It's weird. Like, my Wi-Fi has been great. Fucking past few weeks, it's been great. And all of a sudden today, when we had this thing scheduled, because we scheduled this in advance, and it just fell to shit. I just, so. But again, like, yeah, just, y'all take it easy. That's all I can really say. A part of me kind of fills with dread after these videos, just because I kind of reflect on everything that was said, and it just hits me at once, and I don't know, like, I have this feeling that, like, holy crap, I've never seen history like this, right? I'm big into history. I don't think there's ever been a time in human history where we've had this much of a controversial dynamic between men and women. All throughout history, men and women have worked together for the tribe, for the community, for the group, and the state wasn't involved. Now we have the state instead of the man, and that's why women vote for the state and men vote against the state. And men wanting to go back to the way it was isn't a bad thing. I don't know why feminists frame it as a bad thing, because, again, going back to the way it was, we got along, we had fun, we did things, we achieved things, we invented things, we had the world in our grasp as a nation, America specifically. We had the world in our grasp as a nation. In the 1800s, holy crap, we were inventing shit like left, right, and center. We really were. We were inventing things like crazy. And people were like, is there something over there in the water? What the fuck? Why are they inventing so much? What the fuck have we invented the past 100 years? Other than transistors. Like, that's it. Like transistors, and that's the only really big invention we did is transistors and transistor radios. Without the transistor, most technology would not be what it is today. I mean, you need transistors in, I think, computers, I don't know too much about computer anatomy. But again, like, what the fuck have we invented ever since the state replaced men? What have we done? What have we invented? I mean, Trump made it a hell of a lot better. I'll agree with that. He made it a hell of a lot better. he made, you know, he did a lot for men, and it will sadly never be framed that way. You know, he was the only president in history to lose net worth after being, you know, during the time of being president, from before to after, right? The only one. So obviously he didn't do it for the money. I mean, everyone says, oh, he did it for the fame and his ego, but if you're going to do it for your ego, then you're not going to care about other people. He obviously cares about this country and the military and other people, and he cares about these things. And everyone hates him. It's as if we live in a nation of bullies, and he's the one smart kid that everyone cheats off of, and then acts like it was their idea. Which is exactly what the fuck Biden did. Biden stole Trump's fucking platform at the last minute. And no one noticed. No one cared. You know, and I'm not going to say everyone voted for Biden, because no one voted for Biden. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get a single fucking vote. That's how little I trust the election, and that's how much I trust this corruption narrative. Because holy crap, there is so much evidence and so much signs that points to it. And it keeps unfolding. We'll keep seeing it. As I mentioned earlier, I think we should just kick him out. Biden. I think you cheat, that means you lose. Fuck you. Leave. That's what it should be. We need to do that to set a precedence. To set a precedence that you can't do this again, motherfucker. You can't cheat again and get away with it. You can't. Unless you want a one-party rule. And riots in the fucking streets because their votes don't matter. You know, if they don't have any say over their government, and if they don't have any food, and if they don't have work, people will revolt. And we're allowed to in our Constitution. We're allowed to. We're allowed to overthrow the government. That's what it says in our Constitution. If our nation becomes tyrannical, and if Biden wins in spite of all the evidence against him, it will become tyrannical. I'm not even saying that because of what Biden is going to do. I don't think he's going to do shit, honestly. I think he's going to just sit on his laurels like Obama did. That's just me. No one else seems to say that for some reason. But that's just what I think. You know, I think he's just going to rest on his laurels and not do anything. That, or he's going to be instructed. Let me rephrase that. If it's up to him, he's going to rest on his laurels. If it's up to the people controlling his ass, then he'll try to undo a lot of what Trump did. That's the first thing they're going to try and do, is undo everything Trump did. And it's so weird because the left, as Brian mentioned, the left do not understand the right at all. The left thinks the right are sexist, racist bigots who hate women, hate gays, and rape for fun. 6 lies in one sentence. 6 fucking lies in one sentence. And I don't know. I will say this about Trump and everything. I'm not going to say that Biden's not my president. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to throw a bitch fit like the left did for the past 4 years. I'm not going to do any of that. Even though Trump legitimately won. Legitimately. And Biden did not. We have a lot of evidence that the fucking mail, the UPS, all the mailmen backed Biden, and they shipped votes after the election. They shipped them. All the while they forced the Republican observers out of the building, they had people bus in hundreds of thousands of Biden votes. Hundreds of thousands of Biden votes. And with that, you know, c'est la vie. That they stole it. Trump won and they stole it. And that's what all the evidence points to. The only people who are refuting that are leftists. Hardcore leftists too. A lot of Democrat types are even saying this is fake or rigged or whatever. Even they're saying it. And most of them don't like Trump. And even they're saying it. So kind of makes the narrative fall the fuck through of we're just jealous your guy won. Which is bullshit. Holy crap. The day CNN announced Biden is the winner, holy crap, were there not a bunch of memes posted by a bunch of leftist tarts talking about how, you know, well, Trump lost and we win and suck it racist and all this shit. Like, you people are sour losers and sour fucking winners. You're just fucking rotten. You're sour, rotten people. No wonder I'm becoming more right-leaning as time goes on. No fucking wonder. Because I don't want to associate with you crazed fucking lunatics. I don't. I don't want to associate with you. I just want people to get along. Honestly. I want people to love each other. And it's depressing to see this divisive narrative. And I agree with Brian. Us adding race to the equation does not help. Us adding gender does not help. You know, if a white man kills a black man, it's somehow a hate crime. Not the other way around, though. That's not fair. That's not equal. That's not progressive. That's none of those things. Sorry for the little side tangent. This is about 3-hour video, so I'm going to leave it here. You guys take care. Bye-bye.